Chapter 2379. The game was over. Bang! The ancient volcano instantly collapsed. Dust and dirt flew into the air, spreading millions of miles away. A fifth-level World King powerhouse couldn't block the space and time divine steel. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Then multicolored flames appeared, burning down the entire volcano and causing lava to shoot into the skies. And from the endless flames, a slender figure walked out. As if he were born from the flames behind him turned into a vortex that rapidly vanished into his body. He was Lin Ling. With Lin Ling's current strength, it was difficult for him to control the space and time divine steel. Even so, he could barely use it once. As for its power, it was as if the heavens were falling apart. The world essence in my two dantians was instantly consumed. Lin Ling's helpless voice echoed out from the pitch-black night. However, after killing Mai Yan, he had also absorbed his opponent's flames, causing his space and time flames to rise once more. I already said that this is where you will be buried. Soon Lin Ling disappeared into the night. And at this time in the ancient forest, the battle was extremely fierce. Shouts of killing shot into the skies. Haha, there was a violent explosion just now. I can see the fierce flames now. It looks like Lin Ling has been burned alive. Atop a broken ancient tree, Qian Taiji was sitting there. He drank wine, his voice filled with excitement. Lin Ling should be regretting his actions right now. Indeed, if he dared to disgrace Qian Taiji, then the only fate left for him was death. Sir died. Falling flower, flowing water, and the others paled. But they also believed Qian Taiji's words. This was because the explosions in the distance were intense, and there were flames soaring into the skies. If they weren't wrong, then Mai Yan was a fire tribute martial artist. Thus, Lin Ling should have been killed. Unfortunately, Lin Ling had died before he could even begin. My man won't die. Only Xian Yuange, still believed in her own opinion. Of course, this was a blind trust. Of course, but her trust seemed to have paid off. In the pitch-black forest, a chuckle sounded out. Although the sound was light, it was as if it came from the 9 nether hells. Suddenly, all the fighting stopped. From the dense forest, a slender figure slowly walked out. His face was pale, and his long hair was tied behind his head. His entire being exuded the aura of a dragon and tiger. If this wasn't Lin Ling, who else could it be? You're not dead. The flagon in Qian Taige's hand fell to the ground. He almost fell from the tree. How is this possible? Lord Lin Ling. Falling flowers, flowing water soared, and the others were overjoyed. Lord Lin Ling was indeed powerful. The surrounding soldiers also stopped killing, as if they had seen a ghost. But soon Qian Taichi roared. Lord Mai, are you there? Where are you? In his opinion, Lin Ling must have escaped back here. So as long as he called Lord Mai over, Lin Ling would definitely die. No need to call him. He's already dead. However, Lin Ling said expressionlessly. With a wave of his right hand, a head was thrown out by Lin Ling. It landed on the ground and rolled. Although the head was burned until it was a little blurry, one could still make out Mai Yan's facial features. At this moment, the forest became even more silent. Plop. Qian Taiji fell from the tree with a look of disbelief. You killed Lord Mai? He's a 5th-level world king, and he's from the Resplendent Academy. So what? The game is over. Everyone here will die. Lin Ling strode forward. His figure became clearer in the darkness. A thick murderous aura emanated from his body. Plop. His words made Qian Taiji and the others' hearts tremble. They were afraid. They couldn't understand how Lord Mai had failed. One had to know that Lord Mai was the last generation's candidate disciple of the Resplendent Academy. To them, such a person was an invincible existence. But now, his invincibility had been broken. If they hadn't seen Lin Ling arrive with their own eyes, they would have thought that they were dreaming. At this moment, Qian Taiji looked at Lin Ling, as if he was looking at a demon king from hell. He finally knew the gap between him and Lin Ling. He had come for revenge today, but he had come to seek death. Spare me, Lord Lin Ling, spare me. It's a misunderstanding between us. It's a misunderstanding. He knelt down and kept kowtowing. In fact, if he fought with Lin Ling now, even if Lin Ling could kill him, it would take a lot of time. This was because Lin Ling had exhausted all of his world essence by the time and space divine steel. However, he was like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. He was completely frightened. Plop. The other soldiers also knelt down and kept kowtowing. A shocking scene appeared in the forest. Everyone knelt down and begged for mercy. It was a shocking scene. "My lord, you're so powerful." Falling flowers, flowing water, and the others exclaimed. If it wasn't for Lin Ling, they probably wouldn't be able to escape death today. Pa. Lin Ling continued to walk forward and arrived in front of Qian Taiji. He looked down at Qian Taiji and said, "The number one genius of the God of War Battalion, Qian Taiji. If you were a little tougher, I might have thought more highly of you. However, you only know how to beg like a dog. You've disappointed me. I can't compare to you, Lord Lin Ling, spare me." Qian Taiji felt extremely humiliated. However, his life was more important. "Raise your head and look at me." Lin Ling shook his head. He had experienced so many ups and downs since he started learning martial arts. Naturally, he wouldn't make such a low-level mistake. If he didn't remove the roots, there would be endless trouble in the future. "Raise my head." At this moment, Qian Taiji's heart trembled. He slowly raised his head. He wanted to see if Lin Ling would let him go. "Raise your head to kill." However, Lin Ling coldly spat out a sentence. His sword slashed across Qian Taiji's neck. Qian Taiji finally understood the meaning of raising his head. He stared at Lin Ling and wanted to say something. Unfortunately, nothing was left, and he fell on his back. Plop. After he fell, the hearts of the surrounding soldiers trembled. "Lord Lin Ling, spare us. We're all under Lord Qian Taiji's orders. We're innocent." The soldiers begged for mercy. They regretted it so much. "Kill them all." However, Lin Ling said mercilessly, no matter who ordered these soldiers, they did want to kill him. Since they took this path, they must pay the corresponding price. "No!" the soldiers cried out in horror. At this moment, they hated Qian Taiji because the latter had harmed them. "Go to hell. When you wanted to kill us, I didn't see you begging for mercy." Falling blossom, flowing water, and the others coldly said and attacked. As for Lin Ling, he walked toward Xian Yuangu'er. He held onto Xian Yuangu'er's hand and strode away, leaving the forest. After falling blossom, flowing water, and the others left, blood flowed through the forest like a river. All of the soldiers had been annihilated. "Let's go. I hope we don't meet any more fellows who seek death." Lin Ling smiled as he looked at his surroundings. Then he strode away. Lord Lin Ling can actually kill a 5th-level World King powerhouse, and one that came from Resplendent Academy. If so, then Lord Lin Ling's strength is enough to enter Resplendent Academy. Chapter 2380. Translator. Naebo Studio Greater Qingzhou. After coming out of the forest, the group headed towards the direction of Qingzhou. Traveling under the night sky was quite a different experience. As they got closer and closer to Qingzhou, Lin Ling's eyes flickered. Li Xiaoao had been to Qingzhou in the past. He wondered how it was now. However, there were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers in Qingzhou. Even though Lin Ling had obtained Li Xiaoyao's inheritance, he still planned to start from scratch. After all, rice had to be eaten bite by bite. Gradually, specks of light began to appear in front of him. Upon closer inspection, it was the light emitted by countless buildings. The huge city of Qingzhou. So big. It was Xian Yuangu'er's first time here, so he couldn't help but exclaim. Tang Yue, Gong Yangjiang, and the others had obviously been here before. But even so, there was still shock on their faces. The city was so big that one couldn't see the end of it. It was like a huge mountain that stretched endlessly. All the buildings were built along the mountain, and the Great Azure Divine Dynasty was at the top of the mountain. Most importantly, the majestic mountain was really huge. There were colorful clouds flowing in the sky. There was Dragon Qi, Emperor Qi, Thunder Qi, and so on. It was like the universe was in chaos. Because there were too many experts, they gathered together and formed a powerful aura. It could be said that this city was the core of Azure Prefecture. This was also the place that every powerhouse from the myriad worlds yearned for the most. Lin Ling, how big is this city? Xian Yuangu'er surveyed the entire city, but he still couldn't see the end of it. For example, the Xianpeng, Xianyuan, Xianhuang, The ghost realm, the devil realm, and the god realm can't even compare to 1/10 of this place. Lin Ling said with a smile. His soul power and 10,000 mammoth devil eyes couldn't see through the great azure prefecture. Chi. Upon hearing this, Xian Yuangu sucked in a breath of cold air. A giant city was already bigger than their hometown. How terrifying. There are as many experts here as there are hairs on a cow. The weak can't survive here. Lin Ling spoke again. His heart was filled with excitement because the stronger the world, the more he liked it. Only in this way could he become even stronger. Let's go. After that, Lin Ling led the group forward. Even though the Great Qingzhou seemed close, it would take a very long time to fly there. Gradually, as everyone landed on the ground, they felt that the ancient city in the distance was even more magnificent. Bronze walls that were nearly 1,000 miles high carried with them a sacred and dignified aura that blocked out weak martial artists. And above the city walls, gates opened and powerful martial artists had the qualifications to enter. Through the city gates, one could see that there were magnificent mountains, ancient lakes, and even oceans. It's really the work of the gods. Xian Yuangu couldn't help but sigh. She also noticed that the wind blowing out of the city gate was very comfortable, and the spiritual energy was extremely rich. It seemed to be the ancient spiritual energy of the chaos of the universe. This is one of the 9 origins of universal chaos. Lin Ling said indifferently. He already knew that the land of the 9 prefectures hid countless secrets. If he could obtain these secrets, he would be able to dominate the entire universe. According to legend, this land gave birth to countless miracles. Some people were burned to death by the sunlight, but they lived on with the help of the sunlight, forming a powerful talent. There were also people who died sitting on the ground and turned into stone statues. After thousands of years, they broke out of the stone statues and were born again. All kinds of mythical events would appear here. In fact, this place was also related to Tao. The so-called Tao is actually the martial Tao and the heavenly Tao. Those who obtained Tao were the same age as universal chaos. This was also the realm that all martial artists pursued their entire lives. Unfortunately, Tao was too elusive. Even Li Xiaoyao had only just touched the threshold. Shaking his head, Lin Ling collected his thoughts. He didn't know what Tao was. However, when his strength reached a certain level, the truth would be revealed. Enter the city. Lin Ling took a big step forward and walked toward the ancient city. The city gate had a mysterious light screen that prevented weak martial artists from entering. But Lin Ling and the rest were obviously not weak, so they could enter easily. After entering the city, all kinds of noises were heard. The streets were filled with martial artists. It was already night time, but there was still a sea of people. This showed how attractive Qingzhou was. That's the demon tribe. Xian Yuangu's beautiful eyes twinkled. Miss Xian Yuan, please lower your voice. This place belongs to the First Ring City. People from all walks of life can easily attract trouble. Lin Xianshun, who was beside her, reminded her. He had been to many places and naturally knew the rules of this city. Lord Lin, that person is already looking over. At this moment, Xian Yuangu frowned. Lin Xianshun nodded and took a step forward. He stood in front of Xian Yuangu like a guard. In the distance, the 2-meter-tall bull-headed man thought for a while and ignored them. Seeing this, Lin Xianshun let out a sigh of relief. He then looked at Lin Ling and smiled. He was no longer a citizen of Tating Prefecture, so he treated Lin Ling as an adult. Qingzhou is very big. Every region has different rules. For example, this First Ring City is the outermost region of Qingzhou, so the rules are more chaotic. Lin Xianshun explained. There are so many strong martial artists in Qingzhou. Does no one care? Xian Yuangu was puzzled. Sister Gur, you have to know that this place is very big. Those strong martial artists can't control everything. Tang Yue said. Xian Yuangu nodded in understanding. Indeed, this place was very big. Those strong martial artists couldn't control everything. She might as well let him do as he pleased. She only needed to prohibit martial arts in certain areas. The people here are not from the human tribe. After all, the martial artists here come from thousands of worlds, so there are all kinds of races. Lin Ling said at this time. He didn't care about the Minotaur from before. If this Minotaur wanted to die, then he would help him. Luckily, this Minotaur was smart. As the group walked down the street, they saw many different races. There were ghost races and even half-beast races. Moreover, most of them were at the World King realm. Their auras were terrifying. How strong? If there are so many powerhouses in First Ring City, then what about Second Ring City? Falling flowers, flowing water clenched his fists, wishing he could become stronger. With our current strength, we don't have the qualifications to enter Second Ring City. So, don't even think about it. Moreover, although there are many World King powerhouses here, not all of them are fierce. Lin Ling comforted him. There were indeed many powerhouses here. But Lin Ling also had many cards in his hands. He was confident that he could kill a 5th stage World King. This meant that he didn't fear at least half of the people here. Of course, Lin Ling didn't want to stir up any trouble, since this was his first time here. And as they walked forwards, road signs began to appear in front of them. They pointed to 3 academies: Heavenly Saint Academy, Radiant Academy, and Blue Soaring Academy. And beneath the giant road sign, 3 old men were sitting there like statues. Beneath them were 3 lotuses, and above their heads was the demon-subduing tree. These 2 were extremely precious treasures. Lin Ling never imagined that they would be used for cultivation. To Radiant Academy, Lin Ling looked around, and then walked towards one of the road signs. "Sir, do you have an invitation card?" Beneath one of the 3 lotuses, an old man opened his eyes. His pupils were like lightning, as if they could see through a person's soul. Lin Ling nodded. The jade card of the Martial God Battalion appeared in his hand. Chapter 2381. Geniuses are as common as clouds. Lin Ling, 700 years of cultivation. Martial God Camp Deputy General. You come from the Northern Lands, 2nd level World King realm. Not bad, you can obtain a spot. The old man stared at Lin Ling, a bit surprised. To them, cultivating for 700 years was a very short period of time. They could be considered part of the younger generation. But to cultivate for 700 years, and reach the 2nd level of the World King realm, this strength was quite good. It has been a long time since a genius has been born in the Northern Lands. For you to represent the Northern Lands is quite amazing. I look forward to you becoming a candidate for the last generation of Radiant Academy. The old man faintly smiled, causing Lin Ling to nod. Thank you, senior. He discovered that this old man was very strong, having reached the true divinity realm. Moreover, his body exuded the aura of 10,000 worlds. It was clear that he had been to 10,000 worlds, including his hometown. However, this old man's status was too high, and he was too lazy to care about anything that happened in his hometown. As for Lin Ling, when he was in the Rainforest Holy Land, his strength was limited, so he hadn't been able to sense this old man's arrival. Traveling through 10,000 worlds. This was a strength that left one envious. After all, 10,000 worlds were so large. To travel through every world wasn't something that just anyone could do. But this also proved that this old man was very old. You all can also enter. Then, the old man said. The others also had a jade card from the Martial God Camp. They clearly had the qualifications to enter. Everyone walked down the path. Behind them, the juniors also walked towards the old man. Moreover, they all looked at Lin Ling with envy. My lord, we are also going to Radiant Academy, someone respectfully said. The 3 great academies were extremely sacred places of the Great Blue Prefecture. They were the places that all martial artists yearned for the most. Thus, no one didn't want to enter. After all, only by entering the 3 great academies could one enter places like Second Ring City. This was an endless glory. Do you have an invitation? The old man lightly said, his face kind. My lord, we don't have an invitation, but we are also at the World King realm. We should be able to enter. Someone said with a flattering smile. Sorry, you cannot enter without an invitation. The old man smiled and refused. Why? They aren't stronger than us, but if they can enter, why can't we? That's right. I fear those brats won't be able to block a single move from me. Radiant Academy is too unfair. The others echoed. Calm. They didn't have any background, so they couldn't enter. But they were obviously unwilling. Hee hee. They have served in the Martial Gods Battalion, and made contributions to Qing province. That's why they are qualified. Young man, let me give you a piece of advice. If you want to obtain something, you have to pay the price. Don't look at others' glory without seeing their contributions. The old man was still smiling. His words made a lot of sense. Lin Ling, Falling Flowers Flowing Water Sword, and the others had served in the Martial God Battalion. These contributions could not be erased. They had paid a price. Bullshit. The martial god world speaks based on strength. Their strength is not as good as ours. They are trash, so they are not qualified. Senior, why don't you let them come out and fight with us? The winner will be qualified. Some people were even more unwilling to accept this and erupted with a powerful aura. Why don't we force our way in and capture those people? The others also shouted angrily. The old man was still smiling as he shook his head and said, Alas, you see, their cultivation levels aren't high, but that doesn't mean they aren't strong. As for you, Chi, mysterious green lotuses suddenly appeared under the feet of those people. Then they merged together, and a terrifying aura spread out. Bang! The most arrogant person was directly turned into powder, and became a lotus seed. The others were the same. Mercy, mercy, we won't go in. The remaining people hurriedly knelt down and begged for mercy. They thought that the old man was easy to bully, but who knew that they would be killed the moment the old man attacked? Idiots! Behind them, more and more people arrived one after another. At this moment they sneered disdainfully. Regardless of the strength of those people, if they were recognized, they would definitely be invited. Since they dared to snatch their spots, the Resplendent Academy would definitely take action. Moreover, this was the Resplendent Academy. If they were arrogant here, they would not pay for it even if they had 9 lives. At this moment on the main road, Lin Ling and the others also noticed what was happening behind them. They shook their heads and smiled. If one could enter the Resplendent Academy with strength, they would not have joined the Martial God Battalion. On the path of martial arts, most of the time, one had to take one step at a time. It was possible to soar to the heavens once, but rarely twice. Are we that weak? Lin Ling smiled and looked at the several people beside him. Hearing this, Falling Flowers and Flowing Water shook their heads. Lord Lin Ling had killed a disciple of the Resplendent Academy, so how could he be weak? At the very least, they could be sure that Lin Ling was no weaker than an ordinary disciple of the Resplendent Academy. And at the end of the main road, there seemed to be an ancient city. The people that appeared here were all very young, and their strength was not weak. TSK, that is Shen Tianfei of the Origin World. He also has the qualifications. Suddenly, Di Balo looked at a person in front of him. This person was thin and had long purple hair. He seemed unruly. Then, Di Balo saw the confusion in everyone's eyes. He explained, Before I went to the Martial God Battalion, I came into contact with that fellow. He was very strong. Later, I heard that he joined the Demon Sealing faction. I don't know how he managed to obtain a spot, but he also came to participate in the assessment. 3rd level World King Realm. That's a higher boundary than all of us. The chess boy frowned. Besides Lin Ling, everyone else was at the 1st level of the World King Realm. Moreover, this was the result of painstakingly cultivating in the Martial God Battalion. Before this, they were only at the Martial Emperor realm. A high boundary doesn't mean you are strong. For instance, talent, martial arts, and weapons can make up for the difference in boundary. Lin Ling comforted them, making them feel less nervous. In truth, the juniors that appeared all around were extremely strong. 3rd level World Kings weren't rare. And there were even 4th level World Kings. This place could be called a place where geniuses were as common as clouds. If the Resplendent Academy was like this, then what about the other 2 great academies? This proved that Azure Province was indeed a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. It's Yulinglong. Heavens, she has reached the 5th level of the World King Realm. At this time, Falling Flowers and Flowing Water shouted out loud. Following his gaze, everyone saw a woman in a golden uniform walking in front of them. She was like a goddess of war. Every move she made tugging at the hearts of the entire street. There were even many youths that revealed looks of adoration. Unfortunately, the distance between them and this woman was too great. She was a proud daughter of heaven with both strength and beauty. Thus, they could only look up to her. That is the Moonlight Swordsman, Gong Yangjiang said. Then he looked at falling flowers and flowing water. You should know him. I know him. His master is the same as my master, one of the 10 great sword immortals of Azure Province. Falling flowers and flowing water nodded, but his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Your strength is inferior to his. Lin Ling also stared ahead. He saw a youth in a white robe with 2 swords hanging from his waist. His robe was embroidered with maple leaves and his face was pale, as if he had just recovered from a serious illness. He gave off a delicate beauty, and this sort of beauty was fatal to some women. All around the street, some young women also cried out in alarm. Chapter 2382. Blue Enchantress Falling Blossom Flowing Water looked a little lonely. Although he was also a disciple of the top 10 sword celestials of Qingzhou, he was obviously not as good as them. The path of martial arts is long. We don't know who will be the winner. Don't lose your confidence, Lin Ling said lightly. Falling Blossom Flowing Water smiled and nodded heavily. At the same time, the white-robed swordsman also looked at Falling Blossom Flowing Water with disdain. Obviously, he recognized Falling Blossom Flowing Water. Then he walked forward slowly. On the other side, Yu Linglong also looked over. Of course, it was just a glance. In her heart, Lin Ling and his group were not worthy of her attention. In this assessment, she needed to be careful of the other geniuses. Let's go. Lin Ling did not say much and led the group forward. On the street, apparently, no one paid attention to them. Even if they did, it was because of Xian Yuan Gu'er and Tang Yue. Those guys are lucky to have such beautiful companions. Should we go and snatch them? The assessment is about to start. Don't mess around. When you become a candidate of the last generation, you can do whatever you want. But that girl looks familiar. She seems to be the little princess of Square Commandery. Are you kidding? Would a little princess be someone's follower? You must be seeing things. Around the street, some people sat cross-legged and adjusted their states. Some people were bored and whispered in each other's ears. Lin Ling and his group entered a random inn and prepared to rest. It was not yet dawn, but the inn was already full of people. After Lin Ling and his group entered, many people's eyes lit up. A few people at a table could not help but laugh. Tang Yue, over here. A girl in a blue dress waved at Tang Yue. Tang Yue, the little princess of Square Commandery? Many people's faces changed. Square Commandery was one of the 4 commanderies in Qingzhou. It was an ally of the Great Qing dynasty, and was extremely famous. Sister Enchantress. Tang Yue's beautiful eyes also lit up as she stared at a woman at the table. That woman was wearing a blue cheongsam. She sat with her legs crossed, revealing her fair jade-like legs that reached all the way to the bottom. She was extremely attractive. Of course, after a glance, the crowd did not dare to look anymore, because they had heard of that girl who looked like an enchantress. It was said that she was the Blue Enchantress. According to the rumor, she was Enchantress. Flying Dragon Organization. And Flying Dragon Organization. Flying Dragon. Had Flying Dragon organizations. Sir Lin Ling, I saw a friend. I'll head over first. Tang Yue. Tang Yue. Tang Tang. Lin Tang Yue. Was Tang Yue. Tang Yue's Chinyu. Cloud Blossom Chas. Who is that guy? You actually have to go through his request. As Tang Yue walked over, the Blue Enchantress cried out in alarm. Her lips were blue and she looked very charming. My immediate superior. If I didn't listen to his orders, then the Martial God Battalion would not have given me an invitation and given me a spot. Tang Yue shrugged her shoulders. In any case, he is a very cocky man. So that's how it is. With your status, how could you listen to his orders? But that's fine. Once you enter Radiant Academy, you don't need to care about him. This sort of man who relies on his status to be arrogant is simply despicable, the Blue Enchantress disdainfully said. In truth, he isn't that bad. Tang Yue whispered. Of course, the Blue Enchantress didn't take her words to heart. In her mind, this youth was only at the 2nd level of the World King realm. He wasn't worth mentioning at all. In fact, as she saw Lin Ling's stern face and his demeanor as if he were an adult, She felt very unhappy. If it weren't for the fact that she didn't want to make things difficult for Tang Yue, she really would have taught this man a lesson. After all, Tang Yue was a little princess. When had she ever been someone's subordinate? It seems that your life in the military has changed you a lot. You aren't as unruly as before, the Blue Enchantress said. How could that be? I wasn't unruly before either. Tang Yue sniffled as she replied. She began to reminisce with the others around her. As the others talked, they also looked at Lin Ling with disdain. They thought that Lin Ling was only using his status to make Tang Yue listen to him. At this time, Lin Ling and the others found a table and sat down. They called out for food and wine as they waited for the academy's examination to begin. As falling flowers, flowing water, and the others were chatting, Lin Ling's soul force quietly gushed out, probing his surroundings. As he had guessed, there were many powerhouses hidden in the surroundings. These powerhouses could easily kill him. As for the younger generation that came to take the examination, he didn't fear them at all. Isn't this Ram River? At this time, a sharp voice suddenly sounded out. At some unknown time, several figures had entered the inn. There were tall and sturdy minotaurs and even crocodiles. They were led by a blonde youth as they slowly walked forwards. Look at that youth's robes. They have the Yuan character embroidered on them. They are from Great Origin Mansion. The surrounding people's faces changed slightly. Great Origin Mansion was also a place that couldn't be underestimated. Like the Martial God Barracks, it belonged to the Great Azure Divine Dynasty. Ram River? Could it be that guy? Then, many people looked at Lin Ling. As Ram River was the son of Qing State's Fuxing Manor, many people had heard of his name. Ram River's background was obviously not small, but his strength was very weak. This was a well-known fact. It's you, Yuanian. At this time, Ram River raised his head. He recognized the other party. He even had some grudges with the other party. Therefore, when he saw the other party, he knew that things were going to be troublesome. Haha, it's really you. You are the guy who can't beat others, so you throw money at them. The blonde youth laughed mockingly. Someone beside him even imitated Ram River's tone and said, I'm not as strong as others. Can money solve the problem? If money can solve the problem, then it's not a problem. Haha. The others laughed even louder, and even the people in the inn started to jeer. Tang Yue, it's a good thing that you came to sit with us. Otherwise, you would have been humiliated. The Blue Enchantress shook her head and laughed. She looked like she was watching a good show. However, Tang Yue frowned and was a little worried. What do you want? The surrounding people laughed at Ram River, which made Ram River angry. What do I want? I want to tell you that in the martial god territory, strength is everything. Money is not the most important thing. Now get out of here. I want your table, Yuanian said coldly. He had a grudge against Ram River, but he didn't dare to kill him. Humiliating him would be no problem. Do you think I will leave just because you asked me to? There are so many inns here. You can find other inns. Ram River said, frowning. What if I don't want to? Yuanian narrowed his eyes and replied in an overbearing manner. Bang! At this time, the sound of a table being slammed was heard. Dibayemo stood up and said coldly, Your Excellency, don't go too far. It's none of your business. Chapter 2383. Bull Demon Refining World. Yuanian, don't be too arrogant. There are many people here that you can't afford to offend. At this time, Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword spoke up. So it's you, Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword, disciple of Qing Province's top 10 sword immortals. But so what? Could it be that your master will come and uphold justice? Moreover, in terms of background, you aren't enough to make me fear you. Yuanian coldly said. What if I'm included? At this time, the chess boy also stood up. Old Qi's disciple. Many people recognized the chess boy. They didn't expect that there would be so many disciples of ancient powerhouses sitting at that table. At this time, even Yuanian was surprised. Let people off if you can. The assessment is near. We don't want to cause trouble. You can leave now. Seeing Yuanian remain silent, Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword thought he was afraid. As these words fell, many people realized that Yuanian was about to leave the inn. Too much nonsense. Your master is strong. But that doesn't mean you are strong. Take my fist and don't retreat. Let's leave. However, at this time, Yuanian sneered. He stepped forward and shot towards Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword. Grand Cardinal Divine Fist. Walala! A strong wind seemed to blow through the inn. All the wine glasses and other objects were clinking. A fist radiating with light attacked the Falling Flower's water sword. This fist seemed to come from 10,000 worlds. In fact, this fist was enough to completely destroy the inn. But Yuanian's control over his strength was very strong. He didn't let the excess strength affect the inn. From this, one could see that Yuanian wasn't weak. However, no one thought that Yuanian would suddenly attack. Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword was the same. He instantly realized that his opponent was at the second stage of the World King realm. Grand Cardinal True Chi, he has a 4th grade profound body. Some of the genius powerhouses in the inn whispered. At this time, Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword didn't have time to draw his sword. His sword was strong. Without a sword, he naturally wasn't his opponent. Pung! He punched out, resisting the Grand Cardinal Divine Fist. Ha, you overestimate yourself. Yuanian sneered. He wanted to break Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword's right arm, so that he couldn't use his sword. Ka. The two fists collided violently. Righteousness exploded, causing Blossoming Flowing Water Sword's face to turn pale. However, at this moment, a palm appeared behind him, giving him a powerful recoil. The pressure instantly decreased. It was Lord Lin Ling. Blossoming Flowing Water Sword was overjoyed. Get lost! Almost at the same time, Lin Ling's cold voice sounded. The aura of a demon god filled the air, and rushed out through the arm of the Falling Flower's water sword. Bang! The powerful force sent Yuanian flying and smashed into the wall. You've already taken a step back. Scram! After that, Lin Ling's indifferent voice also quietly floated out. The inn instantly fell silent. Many people stared at Lin Ling, their faces solemn. They didn't expect Gong Yangjiang to have such an expert. After all, Yuanian had attacked in an instant, while the latter had defended in a hurry. However, he was still able to force the other party back. His strength was quite impressive. Papa. At this moment, Yuanian slid down from the wall. His right arm was broken and dripping with blood. He stared at Lin Ling, waiting to devour him. He didn't expect that he would be injured with one punch. After all, his righteousness genuine chi had been cultivated by the righteous heavenly incense for 500 years. It was as strong as young and invincible. Who are you? He said in a cold voice. Lin Ling of the Martial God Battalion, their leader. Lin Ling sat back down and said lightly, What? This person is the superior of Blossoming Flowing Water Sword? How is that possible? Yes, they are about the same age. I didn't expect Blossoming Flowing Water Sword to be so obedient. It seems to be true because Bai Mo and the others didn't say anything against it. Many young geniuses exclaimed. Because young people were full of vigor, it was very difficult to convince people of the same age. But now this young man had done it, and he had subdued several people at once. It was hard for people not to be surprised. Xiao Manshan. Yuanian stared at Lin Ling and suddenly shouted. Bang! In front of him, a bull-headed giant walked out. His body exuded a rich demonic aura. His voice was low and deep. One more punch. Whoever retreats will get the hell out of here. Bang! As his words fell, he stepped forward again. With each step, his aura climbed higher and higher. If he were placed in the myriad worlds, he would be able to shake a world. His cultivation was at the 3rd stage of the World King realm. Bull Demon World Refining. At this moment, Blue Enchantress frowned. This was an extremely powerful body cultivation method. It could use the world essence in one's body to refine one's body. It was extremely powerful. It was said that when one reached the 9th stage, they could transform into a world bull demon. It was as big as a world. That person had obviously only reached the 2nd stage, but he wasn't someone that an ordinary person could resist. Little Princess Tang Yue, your superior is in trouble. Do you need my help? Just say the word, and I will help him defeat the bull-headed giant. Then you can show off in front of him. Blue Enchantress said with a smile. She wanted to help Tang Yue. However, Tang Yue shook her head. Let's wait and see. It will be too late. Blue Enchantress was surprised. She discovered that Tang Yue didn't seem to care. And there were two reasons for this. First, Tang Yue wanted that youth to lose face. Secondly, Tang Yue was very confident in that young man. Of course, the first reason was more important. After all, that youth was only at the second stage of the World King realm. There was no doubt that he would be defeated. Bull Demon refining primal chaos. At this time, the bull-headed giant had already attacked. His fist came smashing out, forming the energy of primal chaos. Of course, this was only an illusion. Everything was still world essence. After all, with his strength, he couldn't possess the energy of primal chaos. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire restaurant began to shake, as if a giant was grabbing the restaurant and shaking it. What a terrifying fist. Many people cried out in alarm. The air was swept up in chaos. The fist rushed towards Lin Ling. As for Lin Ling, he stood up, ignoring the turbulence in the air. His divinity and demon body began to stir. After experiencing the blood of the fish monster, the blood of the silver moon supreme beast, the martial god fruit, and the tempering of the flames of time, just how terrifying was his mortal body. His fist also struck out. A dragon-shaped energy flowed tumbling around it. In the next moment, the two fists collided. A terrifying white light appeared. It was formed by the suppression of the air, causing many people to be unable to see what was happening within the white light. Little Princess Tang Yue, if you don't make a move, then it will be too late. Yes, Blue Enchantress immediately cried out. However, Tang Yue waved her hand. Blue Enchantress wanted to say something, but in the next moment, there was a thunderous sound. In the white light, a figure was sent flying backwards, knocking over many tables and chairs before finally flying out of the restaurant. After that terrifying strength disappeared, the crowd finally reacted. That bull-headed giant lost. Yes, it was unknown who said this sentence, but it made the even more silent. Chapter 2384. He's a bird man. Those who caused trouble earlier get out. Along with his actions, a cold voice sounded at the same time. Right now, Lin Ling's god-devil body had reached 5,000 universe power. In fact, it was a 5th grade Xian body. In terms of physical strength, he really didn't fear anyone. Of course, in terms of Jie Yuan, he also didn't fear anyone. Let's scram. Not far away, Yuanian looked deeply at Lin Ling, his eyes full of fear. But today's matter will not be forgotten. Scram, not leave. Lin Ling had heard this kind of threat many times. He didn't mind it, and took a sip of wine. Hearing this, Yuanian's pupils constricted. So many young geniuses were watching, and he was going to roll out? If that was the case, the De Yuan mansion would be completely disgraced by him. Do you want me to help you? However, Lin Ling's next sentence directly told them to get out, because by the time Lin Ling came to help, they might have to leave lying down. Seeing this, many people in the inn couldn't help but laugh. This guy's strength is so strong. He's definitely above average among the younger generation in this batch of assessment. At this moment, Blue Enchantress's little blue mouth turned into an O. She didn't expect that young man to be so strong. She had underestimated him. Actually, I also want to see him lose face. But I know that it's impossible with those people from before. Tang Yue sighed regretfully. Why do I feel that you don't want him to be embarrassed? Tang Yue, tell me honestly, do you like him? Blue Enchantress laughed strangely and said, however, he's still worthy of praise. Unfortunately, his cultivation is too weak. Moreover, the advantage of his physical strength won't allow him to pass smoothly in this test. You're the one who likes him. I hate his arrogant look. Tang Yue immediately retorted, but she muttered inwardly, his strength isn't his physical body. In truth, even she didn't know where Lin Ling's limits were. In any case, he didn't seem like a second-level world king. And the inn also gradually quieted down. The crowd finally knew why falling flowers, flowing water, and the others had submitted to Lin Ling. All geniuses, please gather at the plaza. At this moment, a loud and clear voice came from the sky. The long night was finally over, and the resplendent academy's examination was about to begin. It's about to start. Everyone's spirits were shaken as they walked out of the inn one after another. Lin Ling and the others were the same. Looking at the street, they saw that it was already filled with people. They were all from the younger generation. The men were handsome and otherworldly, and the women were captivating. Every single one of them puffed out their chests and walked forward with high fighting spirit. For the sake of martial arts, they would unleash their full potential. Of course, there was no lack of young masters who were working hard to attract the attention of the beauties around them. There were indeed a lot of women in this assessment. They were dressed in all kinds of clothes. There were cute types, mature types, charming types, and so on. It was no wonder that they were so impulsive. Even Lin Ling couldn't help but be secretly surprised. He didn't expect there to be so many beauties. At this moment, a whistling sound came from the sky. In the distance, a young man in a purple robe stepped onto a white paper crane. He was extremely dazzling. Where did he come from? That paper crane is made of paper, but it can carry people and fly. Xian Yuan Ge exclaimed beside him. It's just a kind of puppet. It can fly after engraving a boundary. But that guy is really in the limelight. Lin Ling curled his lips. Everyone was lining up in an orderly manner. But that young man was flying across the sky. If it wasn't for the limelight, then what was it for? That young man is called White Bird. He's a member of the Heavenly Court. At this moment, a voice came from behind. Tang Yue walked over with Blue Enchantress and the others. Blue Enchantress spoke faintly. White Bird of the Heavenly Court. Falling Flowers, Flowing Water Sword, and the others had obviously heard of this name, and their expressions became serious. This guy is said to be a bird that turned into a human. Dibayemo said. A bird that turned into a human was similar to a carp that leaped over the dragon's gate. As long as it appeared in the chaos of the universe, it could soar into the sky. If a carp could turn into a dragon, then White Bird could also turn into a human. The geniuses of the martial god realm are really colorful. Xian Yuan Ge felt that it was an eye-opener. He knew that the young man's strength wasn't simple. To put it bluntly, he's a birdman. However, Lin Ling immediately mocked. Because of the Heavenly Court. No matter who that person was. As long as he was a member of the Heavenly Court, then he was Lin Ling's enemy. He appeared so handsome, but you said that he's a birdman. You're jealous of him. Blue Enchantress said disdainfully. She stared at Xian Yuan Ge and said, What a cute girl. Come, let's get to know each other. Xian Yuan Ge was a little flattered by her friendly attitude. Lin Ling stared at Blue Enchantress. He found that this woman was tall, and her strength was unfathomable. However, this woman was brought by Tang Yue, so he didn't pay much attention to her. Dibayemo and the others also secretly stared at her, attracted by her slender legs. Jealous? He's not qualified enough to make me jealous. Just wait, there's a price to pay for being in the limelight. Lin Ling looked at the sky again. His words made Blue Enchantress shake her head. She thought that Lin Ling was definitely jealous. In fact, the young man flying in the sky was indeed very attractive. He was like a dazzling star. On the ground, many girls' eyes were shining. Get down. However, very quickly, a thunderbolt descended from the sky and blasted the paper crane. It burned the paper crane, and the White Bird fell to the ground in a sorry state. Everyone has to follow the rules of the Resplendent Academy's examination. At the same time, an old man shouted angrily. Obviously, the White Bird had violated the rules in order to be in the limelight. Hee. Sometimes the opposite of being in the limelight is losing face. Lin Ling immediately shrugged his shoulders, making the chess boy and the others laugh. From the perspective of men, they were also very unhappy with the elegant White Bird. You're really vicious. Blue Enchantress curled her lips. She also felt that the White Bird should be in a sorry state at this moment. And the fact was indeed so. On the ground, a large number of boos sounded, making Lin Ling think of a very popular sentence in his previous life. Acting tough will be struck by lightning. After that, everyone lined up in order, recorded their names and identities, and quietly waited for the examination. Large words began to appear in the sky. This examination was divided into two types. First, the examination of combat strength. Second, the examination of talent. Those who passed the two types of examinations would become the last generation's candidate disciple of the Resplendent Academy. Although there were only two types of examinations, They were definitely very difficult. This made many of the younger generation nervous. Those who want to take the examination come out. Following the old man's voice, a large number of disciples walked out, quietly waiting for the examination of combat strength. Chapter 2385. The whole place was filled with hatred. That's Luo Lu from Only My Commandery. He's at the 4th level of World King Realm. Great God Qian from Grand Court Commandery is here too. Of course, Tang Yue from Square Commandery is here too. That's the genius from Xing and Boundary. He has been in Martial God Realm for 990 years. If he doesn't take part in the assessment after 1,000 years, he will lose his chance. Many people were talking about it. Their blood was boiling, because it was an honor to be with those famous geniuses. Moreover, they also wanted to see the gap between them. Martial God Battalion, you've got guts. After the assessment, I'll teach you a lesson. Suddenly, a cold voice rang out. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Yuanian from De Yuan Mansion. Suddenly, many people were puzzled. Who was the person from De Yuan Mansion talking to? This guy. Beside Lin Ling, Di Bai Mo and the others' faces turned ugly, because Yuanian was talking to Lin Ling. This trash obviously wanted to settle accounts. There were so many geniuses here. So Yuanian was not afraid that Lin Ling would attack him. Who is this guy? How dare he provoke Yuanian? Many people looked at Lin Ling. As for Yuanian, he smiled gloomily. His sudden shout made Lin Ling the focus of attention. Lin Ling would be under a lot of pressure. After all, there were too many people here who were stronger than Lin Ling. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. Lin Ling didn't even look at him. His face was full of disdain. Yu Linglong and the other top geniuses were surprised by his expression. Of course, their eyes were full of disdain. They thought that Lin Ling was pretending to be calm. Lin Ling from Martial God Battalion, you'll be disgraced. You'll be eliminated. Yuanian roared again. Lin Ling's attitude was too calm, which made him very unhappy. Martial God Battalion. Suddenly, a doubtful voice rang out in the square. On the way to Qingzhou, did you guys see my brother Ma Yan? A young man in a black and white robe walked out from the high platform in front of the square. He had his hands behind his back and looked down indifferently. Speak! His furious roar caused the entire plaza to tremble. Senior brother Ma Zi. Someone with sharp eyes Ma Yan Ziyin immediately. This man was the last disciple of Radiant Academy. Who would have thought that he knew Lin Ling? For a moment, everyone paid attention to Lin Ling. They never thought that this unknown young man would cause such a huge commotion. This is bad. Di Bai Mo and World Ma Yan. Ma Yan had been killed by Lord Lin. My Zi. Ma Yan was Ma Yan. Ma Yan had my. Was my Mu Lucas was Ma Yan my continent my runes Louis my. Although they did not know how my Zi got the news, it was better for him to deny it. He's dead. Even Yu Linglong doesn't dare to provoke the last disciple of Radiant Academy. He's not even as strong as Yu Linglong. He's dead for sure. Yuanian did not expect things to turn out this way. Lin Ling had become a thorn in everyone's side. Senior brother Ma Zi is asking you a question. Speak. A moment later, many of the disciples who were about to be assessed glared at Lin Ling. For them, senior brother Ma Zi was the last disciple of Radiant Academy. They needed to flatter him. If they could curry favor with him, they might get a favor. In my opinion, even if he didn't kill them, he still has something to do with it. I think we should arrest him and interrogate him. Yuanian said. He wanted to see the world in chaos. That bastard. Xiang Yuanga, could not help but curse. Everything was caused by that despicable person. The situation had become very troublesome. They did not know how Lin Ling would deal with it. However, trouble seemed to be coming in waves. Lin Ling from Martial God Battalion, long time no see. Step forward. Another young man slowly walked out from the high platform in front of him. He only had one arm. And at this moment, he stroked his severed arm with a ferocious expression as he coldly looked at Lin Ling. Senior brother Yi Xiaoshou. Yes. The crowd exclaimed again. This was another last disciple. Moreover, his background was not small. It was said that he was a member of the Heavenly Court. Senior brother Yi Xiaoshou, you know him? Yes. Among the crowd, Whitebird also smiled. As a member of the heavenly court, he naturally knew Yi Xiaoxiu. Senior brother Yi Xiaoxiu, you mean to protect him? Yes. Even Mai Zi frowned and looked at Yi Xiaoxiu. If the latter wanted to protect Lin Ling, then he would not be able to question Lin Ling domineeringly. However, no one knew that Lin Ling and Yi Xiaoxiu had a 5-year agreement. Moreover, Yi Xiaoxiu's severed arm was cut off by Lin Ling. Therefore, Yi Xiaoxiu was not here to protect Lin Ling at all. I know him. How can I not know him? He belongs to me. No one can snatch him from me, because I want to kill him with my own hands. Yi Xiaoxiu paused for a moment before he finally spat out a cold sentence. As he spoke, his killing intent was extremely dense. The entire square was instantly like boiling water. Never had they imagined that Yi Xiaoxiu did not want to protect Lin Ling, but wanted to kill Lin Ling instead. Lin Ling from Martial God Battalion, how audacious of you. You trash actually dared to offend Lord Yi Xiaoxiu. Kneel down. White Bird immediately shouted angrily at Lin Ling. The others were the same. All of them stared furiously at Lin Ling, as if they wanted to seek justice for Yi Xiaoxiu. To them, Lin Ling was just a passerby. His life and death had nothing to do with them. Of course, if Lin Ling's death could make Yi Xiaoxiu owe them a favor, then that would be very good. Humans were selfish. In the face of benefits, who would pay attention to a passerby? A series of furious roars could be heard in the square. These guys! Falling flowers, flowing water, and the others all turned pale. They had to be wary of Mai Zi alone. Now there was also Yi Xiaoxiu. It's over, it's over. Even Blue Enchantress sucked in a breath of cold air. She did not expect Lin Ling to offend so many people. She could not help but sigh. Tang Yue, what kind of guy do you know? Now everyone wants to see a good show. Her words were filled with helplessness. If it was someone else, she might help Lin Ling out of respect for Tang Yue. However, the ones who stepped in were the last-generation disciples. Last-generation disciples were not on the same level as them. After all, even if they passed the assessment, they were only last-generation candidates. And those who could become last-generation disciples were undoubtedly existences that were revered. Thank you. However, at this moment, Lin Ling softly spat out a sentence that seemed to be directed at Blue Enchantress. Her beautiful eyes narrowed and then she shook her head. What are you thanking me for? I didn't help much. At least you want to help. It's enough that you have this thought, Lin Ling said with a faint smile. He looked very calm, which made Blue Enchantress suspect that Lin Ling was scared silly. She said, many people here want to see a good show for you. You're actually not flustered at all? Thank them for not thinking highly of me, because they are also encouraging me. For them, I will also become stronger. Lin Ling turned his head to look at Blue Enchantress, and revealed a brilliant smile. Chapter 2386. Before the first wave had subsided, another wave rose. Could it be that if the entire world became his enemy, he would be even happier? If he provoked even more enemies, then all of this would only cause him to become even stronger. This was a madman. Moreover, he was a martial arts maniac. Although Lin Ling's voice wasn't loud, many people clearly heard him. What shameless boasting! Where did this trash come from? He's actually so arrogant. Could it be that all of us are hostile towards him, and he wants to use us as motivation to become stronger? Without a doubt, many geniuses angrily shouted out. They had never seen such an arrogant person before. What an interesting fellow. Even Yu Linglong and the others from the first camp smiled. Of course, they thought that Lin Ling was only trying to play to the gallery. After all, arrogance required capital, and this youth was only at the second level of the World King realm. He clearly didn't have that. Yi Xiaoxiu, does your arm still hurt? The 5-year battle has already begun. Do you want to fight now? Or do you want to fight after the assessment? Lin Ling didn't care about the gazes around him. Instead, he looked at Yi Xiaoxiu on the high platform. Bang! As these words fell, the entire square was thrown into an uproar. No one thought that senior apprentice brother Yi Xiaoxiu's arm would be cut off by this youth. Moreover, this youth had actually agreed to fight with Yi Xiaoxiu. He was seeking death. He was simply seeking death. Without a doubt, after Lin Ling's words, even more voices of reprimand sounded out. In their opinion, Even if senior apprentice brother Yi Xiaoshou were to give up an arm, this youth still wouldn't be his match. However, Lin Ling's words caused Yi Xiaoshou's complexion to turn icy cold. Losing an arm was his greatest shame. Although it hadn't been 5 years yet, these past years had felt like years to him. He had bitterly and diligently cultivated in order to wash away the greatest shame of his life. For a time, he coldly glared at Lin Ling. He didn't speak, but Lin Ling angrily shouted out, "Speak, coward! Coward! With just you?" The noise in the surroundings became even louder. The crowd didn't think that the young man would dare to ignore them and directly shout at the last generation disciple. "Hehe, what a coward! My arm was broken by your martial god cannon, but that doesn't mean you're strong enough to break my arm. However, I'll remember you calling me a coward. After the test is over, I'll show everyone who's the real coward." Yi Xiaoshou finally revealed a sinister smile. Even Mai Zi, who was standing beside him, couldn't help but shudder. He felt as if Lin Ling had touched the devil's reverse scale. Of course, even though Lin Ling was going to die, he wanted to know the whereabouts of his younger brother, Mai Yan, before he died. He had the ability to resonate with his younger brother. When his younger brother died, he immediately sensed it and vaguely heard that it was the martial gods battalion. "You're Lin Ling, right? Let me ask you, where did my little brother go? Who killed him?" Thinking of this, Mai Zi looked at Lin Ling and said in an extremely domineering manner, "Senior brother Mai Zi, we haven't seen Mai Yan. We don't know who you're talking about." Falling Blossom Flowing Water immediately spoke. Chess Boy and the others also spoke. "The world is so big. Don't you think you're being too domineering by questioning us just because your little brother is missing?" At this moment, they naturally insisted that they hadn't seen Mai Yan. Otherwise there would be endless trouble. "I want you to speak. Otherwise die." Unfortunately, Mai Zi didn't care about other reasons. He just wanted to know the result. Domineering. This was the powerful last generation disciple. Of course, the others also felt that he had a reason to be domineering. You, Falling Blossom Flowing Water, and the others had unsightly expressions. The other party was too overbearing. "I know where your little brother is." However, just as they were about to find another excuse, Lin Ling spoke. "Speak." Mai Zi frowned. "He's dead. I killed him." Lin Ling smiled coldly. His smile was evil. He didn't hide anything and directly admitted it. Bang! At this moment, the entire square fell silent. It was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Mai Zi was stunned. Veins appeared on his forehead. His little brother was dead. He was killed by that young man. "You're not joking?" He roared angrily. His voice was mixed with shocking anger. "Do you think I'm joking?" Lin Ling was still smiling, but his voice became incomparably cold. This was an even more straightforward admission. This guy, Falling Blossom Flowing Water, and the others smiled bitterly. Previously, they were thinking of ways to avoid it. Who knew that Lin Ling would directly admit it, and even counterattack in an overbearing manner? They couldn't figure out this kind of behavior that didn't play by the rules. As for Blue Enchantress, she smiled bitterly. This young man had offended all the geniuses, and offended Yi Xiaoshou. That wasn't enough. He even offended Mai Zi. This enmity was irreconcilable. In fact, she didn't know that Lin Ling dared to admit it. This wasn't arrogance. With his current strength, he really didn't fear Mai Zi and Yi Xiaoshou. Since he didn't fear them, why should he be so humble? "You, why did you kill him? He's my only brother." Mai Zi finally reacted and let out a painful cry. His voice was distorted. "Because he wanted to kill me." Lin Ling raised his head to look at the man and said fearlessly, "Then why didn't you let him kill you?" Mai Zi's eyes were filled with malevolence. Hearing this, Lin Ling's eyes narrowed. His voice became cold. "I have no enmity with him. He wanted to kill me because of the divine crystals. Now you're asking me why I didn't let him kill me? Let me tell you, once the test is over, I'll kill you too." His voice was filled with murderous intent. It was as if he wanted to kill the entire world. Mai Yan came to kill Lin Ling, so Lin Ling would definitely counterattack. If Mai Zi asked clearly and judged whether Lin Ling was right or wrong, Lin Ling might even apologize. But Mai Zi asked him why he didn't want to die. In this case, There was no need to keep this last-generation disciple alive. After all, Mai Yan's life was a life, but was Lin Ling's life not a life? Crazy. After Lin Ling's voice, the square was in an uproar. Before the first wave had subsided, another wave had risen. No one thought that Lin Ling would be so frivolous, but they could see that Lin Ling was going to die. Master Lin Ling, you're so bold. Dmo and the others smiled bitterly. Master Lin Ling had provoked 2 last-generation disciples at the same time, and this had caused more dissatisfaction among the geniuses in the square. What will come, it can't be avoided. Yes. Lin Ling shook his head, because even if he endured the humiliation, the other party would not let him go. Time's up, the test begins. Yes. At this time, an old man's voice floated in the air, and everyone began to look up at the sky. Yi Xiaoshou and the others naturally did not dare to disturb the test, and could only wait quietly by the side. No matter what the result of the test was, they would not let Lin Ling go today. Little Princess Tang Yue, is this lord of yours really arrogant, or is he just bragging? Chapter 2387. Combat Strength Assessment. Tang Yue shook her head and smiled. In truth, I can't see through him either. Then he must be bragging a lot. Blue Enchantress thought that Lin Ling would definitely sneak away after the assessment. After all, bragging could be used to scare people, but it couldn't be used to defeat an opponent. Lin Ling did not know what everyone was thinking. At this moment, his gaze was focused on the ground. The ground began to sink, revealing 10 huge platforms. A terrifying aura spread out from the platforms. On the platform, there was a cage made of steel. It was covered with cloth and looked extremely mysterious. Whoosh! A gust of wind suddenly blew by, and the cloth outside the cage was blown away, revealing a tall giant inside the cage. This giant's skin was as tough as steel, and he was over 100 meters tall. He stood there quietly, as if he was a demon king of the universe. Chi! Many people shuddered when they saw the giant, because they felt extremely pressured by the giant. Lin Ling smiled disdainfully at the crowd's reaction. These people were mostly people who bullied the weak and feared the strong. When they saw that others were weaker than them, they all pretended to be fierce. But when they saw something mysterious and powerful, they were all like stray dogs. Shameful, Lin Ling said sarcastically. What did you say? Some people seemed to have heard it, and glared at Lin Ling. Yuan Ian was among them. Take the seat yourself. Lin Ling didn't even bother to say anything. He appeared calm and collected. Even Blue Enchantress felt that compared to the others, Lin Ling was indeed very calm. However, she also stared at the platform and wondered, what the hell is this? In fact, Xian Yuangur and Tang Yue were also very curious. We met not long ago. Have you forgotten? Lin Ling said with a smile that wasn't a smile. Xian Yuangur's beautiful eyes lit up. Could it be the martial god giant? That's right, this was the martial god giant. He had seen it not long ago in the martial god barracks. Of course, the martial god barracks was even bigger. So it's a puppet. That makes me less nervous. Blue Enchantress had obviously heard of the martial god giant. After the others learned about it, they all let out a sigh of relief. Only Lin Ling sneered. He whispered to Xian Yuangur. Although this is a miniature version, don't underestimate it. Alright, Xian Yuangur would definitely listen to Lin Ling. Everyone looked at Lin Ling with disdain, thinking that Lin Ling was too cowardly. Meanwhile, the mysterious old man's voice resounded from the sky. One of the tests of combat strength is to fight the martial god giants. You're not allowed to utilize any weapons or treasures throughout the entire process. At first, the crowd didn't feel anything, but the second half of the sentence made many people turn pale. Forbidding the use of treasures and weapons, this was equivalent to choking off half of their strength. After all, some of them had extraordinary backgrounds and were born in a noble family. The weapons in their hands were extremely sharp. But what if they couldn't use weapons? How could they not be shocked? A bunch of good-for-nothings. Is the path of martial arts all about external weapons? At this time, Yuanian said contemptuously. He looked at the sky and saluted. Senior, I'll be the first to take the test. Oh, a surprised voice came from the sky. The voice seemed to want to say something, but Yuan Ian had already jumped down from one of the platforms before the mysterious old man could answer. The first person to take the test was undoubtedly the most eye-catching. Therefore, cheers came from all around, which made Yuan Ian smile excitedly. He was very satisfied with his choice. Idiot! Only Lin Ling shook his head. He knew that Yuan Ian was going to suffer a lot. At the same time, the pupils of the martial god giant under the platform lit up, as if he had woken up from ancient history. A mysterious smoke also filled the air. Bang! He moved as fast as lightning. His fist was like a world. That fist instantly appeared in front of Yuan Ian. That fist could destroy a world. Oh no! Yuan Ian's face changed drastically. He never thought that the giant would be so terrifying. He anxiously retreated and burned his realm essence. Only then did he barely avoid the fist. However, the wind from the fist also seriously injured him. I give up. I give up. Yuan Ian shouted anxiously. Suddenly, a light barrier fell from the sky and enveloped Yuan Ian, protecting him. You're eliminated. At the same time, the mysterious old man's voice also floated out. Hearing that, Yuan Ian's face instantly turned pale. He had worked hard for 100 years just for this moment. However, all his hard work was in vain because he was eliminated in an instant. The irony was that he was so proud before, mocking others as good-for-nothings. However, he was the good-for-nothing now. Then, the light brought Yuan Ian up. Lin Ling looked at him mockingly and said softly, "You're just a good-for-nothing." Such words were undoubtedly rubbing salt on the wound. Yuan Ian was so angry that he gritted his teeth, but he did not dare to do anything. Previously, it was Yuan Ian who pushed Lin Ling into the limelight. Now Lin Ling would definitely return the favor. Haha. Soon, a lot of mocking laughter came from the surroundings. However, they also began to look at the sky. Don't underestimate the martial god giants. Although they are puppets, their combat power has reached the true immortal realm. Underestimating them is courting death. Moreover, the goal of the test is not to defeat them, but to fight with them for half an hour. That's how you pass, the mysterious old man said. Hearing that, Yuan Ian was stunned. He felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. This was because he thought that the test was to defeat the martial god giants. Who knew that he only needed to fight with them for half an hour? He was too anxious. Bang! After spitting out another mouthful of blood, Yuan Ian fell down and fainted. A cultivator must be as calm as a mountain. I didn't even finish explaining the rules before you jumped off the platform. It's obvious how impatient you are. No wonder you were eliminated. In the sky, the mysterious old man said disdainfully, "Let me say one last thing. These martial god giants have participated in the great war of the myriad worlds, and they have destroyed a world with a single punch. Therefore, only by knowing your enemy and yourself can you win every battle." Just like a little friend from before, he could tell that they were martial god giants at first glance. This shows that he is bold and cautious. The little friend he was talking about seemed to be Lin Ling. Many people were jealous because Lin Ling was praised by a mysterious old man. He was too lucky. As for the high platform in the distance, Yi Xiaoshou and the others had ugly expressions. They never thought that among the tens of thousands of geniuses, Lin Ling would be the first to be praised by a senior from the resplendent academy. I was just lucky. At this moment, Lin Ling raised his head and looked at the sky. This is not a fluke. Only when you know more can you be familiar with things. Little friend, you are neither arrogant nor impatient. Very good, very good. I think you will pass. Chapter 2388. Terrifying martial god giants. Immediately, more and more eyes looked towards Lin Ling, mixed with envy. Even Yu Linglong, Blue Enchantress, and the others were the same. As for the Moonlight Swordsman and the other geniuses in the first row, besides envy, there was also jealousy and anger in their eyes. Alright, I've said what needs to be said. 10 platforms, begin the combat strength assessment. The cages on the platforms opened, and the death god giants walked out, their cold eyes looking towards the platforms. Immediately many people shivered. Those eyes were emotionless, cold, and filled with a steely killing intent. Then the participating disciples leapt off the platforms. Since they were here, they might as well give it a try. However, as they landed on the platforms, they realized that the aura of the platforms was even more terrifying. 3 people's legs were already shaking. This was an extremely shameful situation. There was even one person whose pants were wet. The smell of urine wafted out, causing many people above to laugh out loud. The assessment hadn't even begun yet, and these people had already lost the strength to fight. They were destined to fail. Of course, their reactions were normal to ordinary people. After all, facing a true divinity realm powerhouse, no one could remain calm. And this was indeed the case. One of them had been killed by a single fist of the martial god giant, turning into a bloody pulp. It was an extremely cruel and brutal scene. The main reason was that facing the martial god giant's fist, he had been scared witless. If he didn't move, then he would have undoubtedly died. Another person shouted out that he forfeited and was finally saved. But one of them managed to escape from the platform. Your reaction speed is quite fast. Unfortunately, you left the platform, so you were eliminated. The mysterious old man lightly said. In truth, the remaining 7 people weren't much better off. They cried out again and again, constantly dodging the attacks of the martial god giant. Their cultivations were at the 2nd level of the World King realm, and their movement martial arts weren't too strong. They were soon overtaken by the martial god giant. As for a head-on collision, there was no need to mention that. This was simply impossible. They began to be eliminated one by one. Not bad, you managed to last for 10 moves. Unfortunately, there's still a bit of time left before an incense stick of time. You're eliminated. Just a bit more. You were too pleased with yourself before, and ended up failing. Remember, on the road of martial arts, don't think you've won until the final moment. In the end, out of the 10 people, only 1 passed. From this, one could see how difficult the test was. Those who failed could only go back and cultivate bitterly. Then, they would have to wait for another 100 years before they could try again. Sir Lin Ling, how can we possibly pass? Especially since I'm not proficient in movement techniques. If we go down, we'll definitely die. On the platform, Go Boy looked at Lin Ling helplessly. Falling Flowers Flowing Water Sword also shook his head. Even if I'm good at agility martial arts, the martial god giant's speed is so fast that I can't beat him. I estimate that I can only hold on for half an hour at most. They had all lost their confidence. Hearing this, Lin Ling's gaze swept across the crowd and finally landed on Xian Yuangu. Guer, you might be able to pass. What? Everyone cried out in alarm. The blue enchantress thought that Lin Ling was bragging again. She could tell that Xian Yuangu didn't have much combat experience. As for his talent, she couldn't tell. However, the probability of him passing the test was probably lower than Falling Flowers, Flowing Water Sword, and the others. You're fooling us. In the end, the blue enchantress frowned. In fact, the others also thought so, but they didn't dare to say it. Xian Yuangu, go to platform 7. Anyway, there's no one going there now. Lin Ling shook his head and didn't explain. Instead, he looked at Xian Yuangu and said. Xian Yuangu frowned slightly, but revealed a beautiful smile. Okay. Although she didn't think that she could hold on for half an hour, she believed in Lin Ling's words. Then she jumped down to platform 7. Many people exclaimed. They didn't expect that little demoness to be so bold. The blue enchantress and the others opened their mouths wide. They wanted to say something, but they couldn't say anything. They could only say that Lin Ling had killed Xian Yuangu. Haha, some people are really vicious. They even harmed their own people. Maybe he wants others to test the waters for him. At this time, a sarcastic voice sounded out. The one who spoke was a youth wearing a white robe with maple leaves embroidered on it. Lin Ling had seen this person before. He seemed to be called the Moonlight Swordsman, and he seemed to be one of the top geniuses in this examination. Of course, he had the strength of a 5th-stage world king. This strength was enough to be proud of. However, Lin Ling was puzzled. He didn't have any interactions with this person, so why did he speak with such sarcasm? Suddenly, he saw someone beside the Moonlight Swordsman. It was Yuan Yan. That disgraceful fellow had woken up again. Moreover, on the other side of the Moonlight Swordsman, there were a few people who were familiar with him. Lin Ling had heard of 2 of them before. One was Luo Lu from the Only Commandery, and the other was Master Qian, the #1 swordsman in the Tating Commandery. These two commanderies always had a grudge against Lin Ling, so they must be fanning the flames. Despicable. After the Moonlight Swordsman spoke, another person spoke out. It was White Bird. These top geniuses were supposed to be the most dazzling, but now, the most dazzling one was Lin Ling. They definitely didn't like him. Those fellows from the Martial God Battalion are all despicable. They like to stab others in the back. This Lin Ling is even more so. Now that Yuan Yan had a powerhouse by his side, he felt a lot more confident. When he saw Lin Ling looking at him gloomily, he immediately smiled and said, "You're angry because I exposed your plot, right? Haha gong yang jiang. If you follow him, sooner or later you'll be killed by him." His words could be said to be sowing discord. However, Lin Ling quickly revealed a disdainful smile and said, "You said that I'm harming her. Well then let's have a bet. If she passes safely, then you Yuan Yan will fight with me after the assessment? A battle of life and death. Do you dare?" Lin Ling's voice was loud and clear as he challenged Yuan Yan again. In this way, he had already challenged 3 people. No one had expected Lin Ling to be so arrogant. He had simply ignored all the other geniuses. For a moment, many people were even more displeased with Lin Ling. Of course, the self-righteous people didn't realize that they had disliked Lin Ling from the beginning. Therefore, there was no need for Lin Ling to show them any respect. "Do you dare?" Lin Ling shouted angrily again. Yuan Yan's face was pale. He had fought with Lin Ling before. How could he be a match for Lin Ling? At this moment, he was undoubtedly furious, but he couldn't vent his anger. One could imagine how he felt. "If you don't dare, then I'll only use one hand. Do you dare?" However, Lin Ling was aggressive. He wanted to humiliate Yuan Yan even more. Only use one hand. This guy is courting death. Hearing this, many geniuses said disdainfully. They thought that Lin Ling was simply overestimating himself. Just when they thought that Yuan Yan would agree, however, Yuan Yan's body trembled, as if he was hesitating about something. In the end, he remained silent. Chapter 2389. You don't deserve it. Lin Ling was used to Yuan Yan's reaction. In the vast universe, there were many people like Yuan Yan. They were the type of people who sowed discord. When it came to a real battle, they were more cowardly than anyone else. Strength was the best way to deal with such people. The surrounding people were also looking at Yuan Yan. Based on their understanding of him, this genius from the Great Yuan Mansion was not weak. Although he was not as strong as the first and second geniuses, he was still ranked in the middle among the crowd. However, Yuan Yan did not dare to fight even when the other party was giving him a handicap of one arm. This was too disappointing. Coward. Many people looked at Yuan Yan, and their expressions changed. In the world of martial arts, being afraid of a battle was undoubtedly the most shameful thing. The surrounding gazes made Yuan Yan tremble, and his eyes became gloomier. "I actually don't have much enmity with you. If you and I both take a step back, then we'll mind our own business. However, you're being aggressive. Let me tell you, you want to play with me? You're not worthy." Bang! At this moment, Lin Ling's eyes were cold, and he spat out a sentence coldly. The moment he beat the Ask the Heavens war drum, he knew that if he wanted to wash away the shame of the past, he had to move forward bravely. Eliminate. Everyone was eliminated. Therefore, Lin Ling had to be more determined. "You don't deserve it." Bang! The whole square was filled with Lin Ling's voice, which was as tyrannical as endless thunder. "I don't deserve it." Bang! Yuan Yan muttered to himself. He raised his sinister eyes and stared at Lin Ling. However, he lowered his head in the end. He did not know why, but he still did not dare to fight with Lin Ling. Is it fun to bully a coward? If I play with you, do I deserve it? Bang! Suddenly, a cold voice sounded. It was White Bird. He did not expect Lin Ling to be so arrogant. How dare he be so arrogant in front of them? Haha! Bang! Lin Ling laughed loudly. In fact, he wasn't surprised that these people were targeting him. After all, compared to Yi Xiaoxiu and the other 2 last-generation disciples, anyone would side with Yi Xiaoxiu. However, in Lin Ling's opinion, if he was afraid of these geniuses, then how could he seek revenge against Tian Liuli? Moreover, in front of Li Xiaoyao, no one had the right to call themselves a genius. You're not worthy either. Lin Ling sneered and spat out another sentence. Every word struck at the heart. I'm not worthy either. Whitebird froze. He coldly glared at Lin Ling. He was a genius at the 5th level of the World King realm, and also one of the top geniuses. He thought that even if Lin Ling didn't fear him, Lin Ling would still consider him a formidable opponent. However, this was all his wishful thinking. At that time, you will discover that your current declaration is actually equivalent to slapping your own face. The Moonlight Swordsman had almost attacked, but at this moment, he also put his sword back into the scabbard. You say my mouth is powerful, but aren't you all the same? If you have the ability, then fight now. If you don't dare, then shut up. Lin Ling mocked, retracted his gaze, and looked below the platform. That fearless appearance undoubtedly made everyone's faces turn sinister again. However, right now they could only wait. Look, that's the Three Realms Ghost Emperor. Hey! At this moment, someone pointed at one of the platforms and let out a cry of surprise. The Three Realms Ghost Emperor, his name was very resounding. In fact, he was a very young youth. This person had a small reputation in the Western Kingdom. He was the master of 3 realms, meaning that he controlled 3 realms. Bang bang bang. However, facing the martial god giant, the 3 realms Ghost Emperor also failed. He was stomped into meat paste by the martial god giant. He died extremely miserably. Even the 3 realms Ghost Emperor was defeated. This combat strength test is so difficult. Many people's faces were ashen. Suddenly someone laughed sinisterly. That little beauty is going to die. She is very close to Lin Ling. Once this was said, many people rejoiced in other people's misfortune, because on platform number 7, Xian Yuangu'er was in the middle of the test. Her situation is getting more and more dangerous. At this moment, the blue enchantress couldn't bear to watch any longer, and she spoke from Lin Ling's side. Because Xian Yuangu'er had been forced into a corner by the martial god giant, and a single punch was all it would take to destroy her. If it was any other time, the blue enchantress would definitely curse Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling's strong resistance against the geniuses made her somewhat afraid of Lin Ling. This is the martial god giant. Yes. Lin Ling ignored the blue enchantress. He stood at the edge of the platform and looked down indifferently. Whoosh. On the platform below, Xian Yuangu'er was in a sorry state. As she breathed, her full breast swayed. However, she saw the youth above. The youth's face was very calm, and his eyes were filled with confidence. Chapter 2390. Xian Yuangu'er had passed. Giant martial god? What is Lin Ling trying to say? Xian Yuangu'er's eyes flickered. Suddenly, her expression changed slightly, and then she revealed a beautiful smile. Lin Ling had told her that the giant martial god was a puppet, so she understood what Lin Ling meant. Roar. Almost at the same time, a huge fist blasted over, mixed with the aura of the sun, moon, and stars. Haha, to be able to see a beauty die, this is not bad. Even the Ghost Emperor of the 3 realms died. How can she be an exception? Many perverted people licked their lips as they spoke. As for Tang Yue and the others, they cried out in alarm, and became even more worried. Only Lin Ling was still confident. Pa! But at this moment, Xian Yuangu'er made her move. A strand of colorful flames appeared. She raised it and smashed it at the giant martial god. This method was somewhat immature, causing many people to laugh at it, because it could not hurt the giant martial god at all. And the truth was indeed so. The mysterious flame did not hit the giant martial god at all. Instead, it floated to the ground and emitted crackling sounds. Trash's woman is also trash. Seeing this, the white bird could not help but mock. However, something strange happened. The giant martial god actually retracted his fist and pounced on the mysterious flame, extinguishing it with a punch. However, just as the flame was extinguished, another flame rose up. This time, it was on the other side, and it swayed as if it was declaring war on the giant martial god. Roar! The giant martial god was provoked. He let out a furious roar and chased after the flame. He extinguished the flame with a punch, but at this moment, More flames appeared around him, causing the platform to become gorgeous. Boom! Boom! The giant martial god immediately attacked the flames crazily, as if he wanted to destroy all the flames. What happened? This giant martial god seems to have gone crazy. Seeing this scene, many people opened their mouths wide. It was too strange. Xian Yuan-gur was almost defeated, but at the critical moment, the giant martial god seemed to have gone crazy, allowing her to escape. This was earth-shattering. Damn it! Yuanian spat out a sentence. He was very unhappy. This was because he was the first to be eliminated. However, Lin Ling's woman was still alive. This kind of treatment made him seethe with anger. Roar! At this time, the martial god giant let out another roar. An ancient aura spread out, and actually extinguished all the flames on the platform. At this moment, many people finally let out a sigh of relief. That beautiful girl deserved to die. The combat strength assessment is over. Xian Yuan-gu has passed. However, at this moment, a majestic voice suddenly rang out, causing everyone to be stunned. Then, veins popped out on their foreheads. He passed. That beautiful girl was about to die in the next moment. Who would have thought that she would survive this ordeal? This was too inconceivable. Moreover, they could all see that the beautiful young girl didn't have much combat experience. She was ranked at the bottom among all the geniuses. Yeah. At this moment, Xian Yuan-gu let out a cheerful sound. Although the sound was pleasant to the ears, it was undoubtedly ironic when it fell into the ears of the crowd. Then, a ray of light immediately brought Xian Yuan-gu away from the platform. Amazing! Xian Yuan-gu, how did you do it? Falling flowers, flowing water, and sword all laughed. They were happy for Xian Yuan-gu. Xian Yuan-gu looked at Lin Ling gratefully and said with a smile, "Ask him." At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Ling, especially the chess boy and the others. Their eyes were full of enthusiasm. Was Master Lin Ling really that amazing? As for the people around them, they were all like ducks who had been grabbed by the neck. Their faces were as ugly as eggplants because they still couldn't understand how the beautiful young girl passed. Could it be that the martial god giant saw a beautiful girl and held back? This seemed to be impossible. Lin Ling, what did you do? Yuan Yan's face was gloomy, and he couldn't help but shout angrily. That was because he had failed. However, Lin Ling's woman had succeeded. He couldn't stand such a stark contrast. Didn't you say that she was trash? Now that she has passed, don't you think that you're worse than trash? Lin Ling said without looking at Yuan Yan. In fact, his words were directed at all the people who had mocked Xian Yuan-gu. They were worse than trash. The anger in the square suddenly became more vigorous. Lin Ling's words had scolded everyone. Damn it! Others are taking the test, and you're gloating. Did you come here to see others fall? If you're in such a mood, why don't you pay more attention to the test? At this time, the mysterious old man reprimanded, causing many people to hold their breaths and finally become silent. Lin Ling looked at Yuan Yan disdainfully, then whispered to falling flowers, flowing water and sword. Their eyes gradually lit up. Senior, I want to take the test. They started to get restless and came out to take the test one by one. At this moment, those who didn't have a certain level of confidence didn't dare to take the test on the 10 platforms. Their appearance undoubtedly attracted countless eyes, because these people who were about to take the test were Lin Ling's friends. They must die. Regardless of whether it was jealousy or jealousy, many people said coldly, "What a joke." This test only allowed 1 out of 10 people to pass. Sometimes all 10 people would be defeated. However, Lin Ling's friends wanted to pass all of them. That was a dream. Therefore, all the geniuses were waiting for a good show, including the Moonlight Swordsman. What a strange guy. His friend's cultivation isn't high at all. Unless they have great talent, they won't be able to pass at all. But why did he let his friends take the test? Yu Linglong, who had been silent, also spoke. At first, she disdained to look at Lin Ling, but now she couldn't help but look at him in the eye. Of course, even Blue Vixen was the same. Most importantly, Tang Yue had also taken the test. She wanted to stop her, but Tang Yue seemed to be very confident. Now she could only wait and see. On the platform, Luo Hua Lu Shui and the others landed, and looked at the martial god giants solemnly. Roar! The martial god giants attacked, and their aura shook the heavens and earth. It was certain that if these martial god giants were placed in the sacred rainforest, they could destroy it with one punch, and countless people would be buried with them. Go to hell. Quietly staring at the platform, someone couldn't help but roar. However, something strange happened. Luo Hua Lushui and the others didn't use their unique skills. Instead, they were all dancing, and even the chess boy was making faces. As for Tang Yue, she was jumping up and down. Seeing this, the square was silent. What were those guys doing? Kill them. More people roared, but the martial god giants weren't controlled by them. Instead, they stood there quietly, and their cold eyes flickered as if they were thinking about something. Time passed bit by bit just like that. Finally, a martial god giant moved and rushed forward. However, Dbimo, who was below the platform, threw a gong and drum. It hit the ground and made a clanging sound, which made everyone even more puzzled. Chapter 2391. All of them passed the test. Bang. However, soon, everyone saw what the gongs and drums were for. Dbimo, who had given up on the platform, chased after the gongs and drums, and smashed them with a punch. Clang. However, as soon as the gongs and drums were smashed, other people recognized them, causing the platform to ring continuously. For a time, those martial god giants chased after the sound. Time passed faster and faster. While everyone was dumbfounded, a voice suddenly rang out. 30 minutes have passed. They have passed the test. Boom. The voice was like a stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples. That was because all of Lin Ling's friends had passed the test. At this time, all the geniuses in the square were so angry that smoke came out of their heads. That was because those who had passed the test were not at a high level. How could they have passed the test? Senior, they cheated. Someone shouted. It was Yuanian. In fact, he was the most unwilling. Why do you say that? A voice came from the sky. Those martial god giants did not attack them at all. They must have done something. Senior, please eliminate them. Yuanian raised his head and said. His words were also what everyone was thinking. Hee, treasures and weapons are not allowed in this test. But do you think gongs and drums are weapons? The voice from the sky was sarcastic as it floated down. That's not it. Yuani and did not understand what those gongs and drums were for. But he was sure that they were not treasures. I know that you are unwilling, but I have said before the test that you should know your enemy and yourself. That is the only way to pass the combat strength test. You should think about who your opponents are, and then think about how they passed the test. The old man's voice carried a hint of reprimand. Of course, he also looked at Lin Ling with admiration. Then he smiled and said, Ancestor Dragon Granny, this kid that you recommended is very careful and has sharp eyes. Hee, I did not expect him to use this method. The Ancestor Dragon Granny said with a smile. To be praised by the old man meant that her vision was extremely good. Lin Ling was indeed a good seedling. At this moment, everyone in the square was still puzzled. Suddenly someone exclaimed, Puppets, puppets, is this the reason? Puppets aren't humans, nor are they divine beasts. Sometimes, they can't tell the difference between an enemy and an inanimate object, so they can be treated as toys. This is also the reason why Tang Yue and the others threw gongs and drums, made funny faces and jumped up and down. It's because they are playing with the puppets. Someone else spoke up. They seemed to have understood something. In the end, the puppet was still controlled by the person. If no one was controlling it, the puppet would not be able to differentiate between friend and foe. Therefore, it was very easy to deceive them. The geniuses in the previous tests were all fighting, the geniuses, and had fought young geniuses. At this time, the whole square was dead. Everyone looked at Lin Ling in shock. They did not expect Lin Ling to come up with such a plan. His eyesight was too sharp, because through Lin Ling's calm analysis, he was more familiar with the martial god giant than any of the geniuses. Tang Yue and the others looked at Lin Ling with admiration, because Lin Ling had reminded them of this. It was no wonder that Xianyuan Ge was the first to pass the test, because Xianyuan Ge was like a little she-devil, and she was the best at playing tricks on others. So, she was the first to understand the meaning of the test. So that's how it is. Envious. I'm so jealous. They all passed. Unfair. That's too unfair. If we knew this information, we could pass too. Then, many people said unwillingly. Their voices were mixed with disdain. Lin Ling looked at the crowd and said with even more disdain, "Do you think there are ifs on the path of martial arts?" As soon as he said this, no one in the square could refute him. There were no ifs on the path of martial arts. They saw that Lin Ling did it simply, but without Lin Ling, how could they do it? Moreover, if there were ifs, then there wouldn't be so many people dying in this merciless world. For instance, take Lin Ling. If he knew that Tian Liuli would harm him, why would he have helped her that day? Thus, there were no ifs on the path of martial arts. No one could refute Lin Ling's words, but they were even angrier. After all, they were all geniuses of their respective worlds, and were proud and arrogant. When had they ever been trampled on by others? And most importantly, the one who had trampled on their dignity was only a second-level world king. Humph, no matter what, it's enough that we can pass. At this time, someone coldly snorted and leapt off the platform. Seeing this, Lin Ling sneered. He lightly said, "The first person to eat the crab can obtain a good harvest, but the second person might not." After many people leapt off the platform, they discovered that Lin Ling's trick didn't work. This was because although the puppet's intelligence wasn't high, it wasn't dead. It could be tricked once or twice, but it wouldn't be tricked a third time. Roar! In fact, because they had been tricked before, those martial god giants were enraged. Their auras became even more terrifying. Those that participated in the test were immediately annihilated. In the skies, the mysterious old man sneered. These fellows were forever impatient, they deserved it. As for the geniuses in the square, they were all stunned. Then they flew into a rage out of humiliation. They discovered that throughout the entire test process, they had been completely controlled by Lin Ling. What a bunch of trash. But at this time, an indifferent voice floated out. The Moonlight Swordsman had attacked. Relying on unorthodox methods, you won't be able to go far. Some people shouldn't be arrogant and complacent just because they are a little clever. He had 2 swords hanging from his waist. He walked out and walked towards the platform. Hearing this, Lin Ling revealed a stunned expression. Was he arrogant and complacent? He had only helped Tang Yue and the others pass. He hadn't even spoken much during the entire process. However, he was too lazy to explain anything. Moonlight Swordsman, let them see how fierce you are. Seeing the Moonlight Swordsman about to take the test, many geniuses immediately shouted out. They hoped that the Moonlight Swordsman could smoothly pass the combat strength test. The Moonlight Swordsman didn't say much. He leapt off the platform. Roar! At this time, the martial god giant was in a berserk state. But the Moonlight Swordsman didn't evade. Instead, he used his sword to resist. Maple leaves fluttered out in a gorgeous manner. The platform turned into a world of maple leaves. It was beautiful. Clang! As the sword slashed out, a terrifying world essence roared. The Moonlight Swordsman was at the 5th level of the World King realm. In addition to his sword Dowan talent, he was locked in a fierce battle with the martial god giant. Fierce, he is indeed worthy of being ranked as the #1 genius. Everyone cheered again and again. It was as if they were elated. Before, many of them hadn't been able to pass. Only Lin Ling's side had passed. Thus, they had been suppressing their anger. But now, the Moonlight Swordsman had helped them vent their anger. Moreover, he hadn't relied on any unorthodox methods, but true strength. Pass! In any case, as long as one can pass, we will be envious. Voices rang out from the square, making those who passed even more dazzling. Lin something, didn't you say that we're not worthy? Do you still dare to say it now? At this moment, an arrogant voice interrupted the shouts. It was Whitebird. He had his hands behind his back, and was looking at Lin Ling like a king. And the person he was talking about was naturally Lin Ling. Ironically, he didn't even bother to know Lin Ling's name. This showed how arrogant he was. That's right. Didn't he proudly say that he wasn't worthy? Now, it seems like he doesn't even dare to participate in the test. Hehe, the martial god giant has become much more cunning. His tricks are no longer useful. How pitiful. He helped his friend pass, but now he's in danger. Many people looked at Lin Ling with strange smiles. In their opinion, Lin Ling was only at the second level of the World King realm. If he wanted to pass with this level of strength, that was nothing but a fool's dream. The focus of the square fell onto Lin Ling once more. Lin Ling shook his head. He really couldn't understand why these people had so much free time to pay attention to him. It was just as that mysterious old man had said. Rather than wasting time watching others fall into dire straits, it was better to spend more time bitterly cultivating. Only then would others look at you with eyes of worship. Perhaps this was also the reason why they were so weak. As for these voices, Lin Ling was too lazy to bother with them. He looked up into the skies and said, "Senior, I want to go to Platform 7 for the test." "Platform 7, are you sure?" The old man in the skies was a bit surprised. After all, there were some loopholes in the combat strength test. For instance, the more people there were, the more damaged the martial god giant would be, making it easier to pass. But the martial god giant on Platform 7 was in its peak condition. Going there to take the test was extremely unwise. "I'm sure." Lin Ling nodded, his voice thick with confidence. The old man was silent. This was because he could see that Lin Ling was only at the second level of the World King realm. He didn't know where this confidence came from, but he still nodded. "While going to Platform 7? Is this fellow looking to die?" Without any suspense, cries of alarm rang out from the square. In their opinion, Lin Ling was definitely looking to die. He would definitely be in a difficult situation. "Tang Yue, he seems to have lost his reason. Aren't you going to persuade him?" Blue Enchantress's lips moved. She pulled on Tang Yue's sleeve, but Tang Yue shook her head. "If he wants to die, then I'll just watch him lose face." In truth, although her words were fierce, she was actually bitterly smiling in her heart. This was because she knew that it was impossible for her to persuade Lin Ling. As for the Moonlight Swordsman and the others, they crossed their arms across their chests, watching from afar. "This fellow seems to have lost his reason. Even I don't dare to meet the martial god giant on Platform 7 head-on." Those martial god giants are formed from cosmic meteorite copper. They can resist the powerful strength of world essence. Moreover, these giants have countless enchantments carved into them. Unless one is a true divinity realm powerhouse, if one wishes to defeat these martial god giants, they will have to rely on a world enchantment master. "I'm actually worried that if that boy dies on the platform, then senior apprentice brother Yi Xiaoshu will be enraged." They casually spoke, as if they could already see Lin Ling's fate. At this time, Lin Ling arrived at the platform. He looked over and saw a giant standing in the distance. His eyes were cold and emotionless. Standing there, he was like an ancient martial artist that split the heavens and earth apart. An ancient aura spread out from the platform. However, Lin Ling's expression was calm, like an ancient well without any ripples. It was as if the one in front of him was not a giant, but a doll, a docile kitten. This boldness left many people secretly surprised. He moved. At this time someone shouted. The martial god giant took a step forward and attacked like a whirlwind. His fists seemed to carry the sun, moon, and stars. His steps seemed to tread on the universe, his aura rising steadily. Walala! That fist was unstoppable. The martial god giant was famous for his powerful defense. But even so, his fist was not something that a World King realm powerhouse could block. Just as everyone thought that Lin Ling would escape in a sorry state, Lin Ling also moved. He took a heavy step forward, as immovable as a mountain. His palm shook and the aura of divinity and demons spread out, turning into a palm that fiercely resisted that fist. From afar, one was a giant fist, and the other was a thin and weak palm. The two were not on the same level at all. Bang! The terrifying attacks collided, causing the platform to shake. Lin Ling's complexion changed. His palm turned into a fist, and he ruthlessly punched out. Everyone felt as if his arm was a dragon, crazily sweeping out. This fellow. Shit. At this time, everyone was looking at Platform 7. Their faces were filled with surprise. This was because they never thought that Lin Ling would choose to meet the martial god giant head-on. This fellow was simply a madman. Chapter 2393. Violent Destruction of the War God. He is courting death. Yes. The Moonlight Swordsman narrowed his eyes. But this was indeed the case. Because in the next moment, a figure was sent flying backwards, smashing into the stone walls, and causing rocks to fall down like rain. Lin Ling had been sent flying backwards. He had collided with the giant war god. This result was already foreseen by everyone. Awesome! Awesome! However, from the rubble, a loud roar sounded out. Then a figure shot out like a cannonball. Pung! A surging fist came crashing down. This fist contained the strength of 5,000 universes. This was the limit of Lin Ling's divinity and demon body. He was well aware that the giant war god's defensive capabilities were extremely strong, and didn't fear world essence attacks. Thus physical attacks were undoubtedly more effective. Rumble, rumble, rumble. They collided once more. Dust exploded from the platform like a tornado. But Lin Ling was still sent flying backwards. Moreover, he was likely severely wounded. This caused the corners of many people's mouths to curve into sneers. However, what they didn't know was that even though the giant war god's defensive capabilities were strong, how could Lin Ling's be weak? Die! Die! The people above clenched their fists, shouting out loud in their hearts. But in the next moment, another figure shot out from the dust. It was Lin Ling. Bang! Seeing this, many people's hearts thundered. They had never seen such a freakish madman before. Could it be that he wanted to defeat the giant war god? This was simply something that could only be discussed in the middle of the night. The Moonlight Swordsman and the others had ugly complexions. Although they were the only ones that dared to clash with the giant war god, everyone could see that not only was Lin Ling doing so, but he was also suppressing the giant war god. Who in the World King realm would dare to do such a thing? At this time, Lin Ling's entire body was relaxed. This was the first time he had met an opponent with a strength of 5,000. He almost couldn't help but roar out loud. Of course, in these repeated collisions, he had also been heavily wounded. But his fighting spirit boiled over even more. This was also because he discovered that his first Dantian was beginning to quietly revolve. He was getting closer and closer to the third stage of the World King realm. Again. Roar! Roars came from the platform, as if two indomitable giants were confronting each other. Their fists and palms broke through the sky. Rocks continued to fall, and dust continued to spread. The entire platform was almost covered by dust. The old man and ancestor dragon Granny in the sky were also shocked. However, they also discovered that Lin Ling's advantage was his physical body. In fact, with this advantage, Lin Ling could definitely pass the assessment. What a strange fellow, entering the Tao with his fleshly body. The old man exclaimed in admiration. Boom! Boom! The time it took for an incense stick to burn seemed very short, but at this moment, it felt as long as a century. After a long time, the sound finally stopped. However, the square was completely silent. Countless people stared at the dusty platform. They were somewhat nervous, and wanted to know the final result. He must be dead. Yuanian muttered to himself. He didn't realize that his palms were already full of sweat. If you keep talking nonsense, don't blame us for killing you. Tang Yue and the others immediately counterattacked, seething with killing intent. But their eyes were filled with worry. They couldn't understand why Lord Lin Ling would crazily clash with the martial god giant. However, the platform was covered in dust. When they looked down, they couldn't see anything. Someone came out. Someone. Finally, someone cried out in alarm. From the dust, a black shadow shot out. Moreover, it came closer and closer until it finally appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was Lin Ling. At this time, his clothes were in tatters and his body was covered in blood. But he stood there like a pine tree, like an invincible god of war. Chi-chi. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air. This fellow hadn't died? Lin Ling, congratulations on passing and becoming the person with the best score in the combat strength assessment. The old man's voice floated out from the sky, a trace of shock in his voice. What? He has the best score in the combat strength assessment? Based on what? We also clashed with the martial god giant. Moreover, we weren't as distressed as him. Whitebird immediately said, unwilling to accept this. But in fact, everyone could see that Lin Ling was suppressing the martial god giant. while they were defending and clashing head-on. The two concepts were different. May I ask, how many moves have you exchanged with the martial god giant? At this time the old man asked. I have 30 moves. I have 50 moves. Yes. Whitebird and the others immediately spoke. They puffed out their chests and looked extremely proud. He has exchanged 500 moves, and 300 of them were launched by him. The voice in the sky sounded again, but it was like a bomb, causing the square to wriggle. The expressions of Whitebird and the others changed drastically. That madman. After all, the assessment was considered to have passed by enduring the time. Generally speaking, after they exchanged a move, they would have to rest for a few breaths of time. In the end, they would only exchange 20 to 30 moves. However, Lin Ling had exchanged 500 moves, and the time he had spent was only the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. It was terrifying just thinking about it. This meant that Lin Ling had not rested at all, and had fought head-on to the end. This is a battle between men. Yes. Hearing these words, some young girls looked at Lin Ling in amazement. At this time, Lin Ling's image was infinitely magnified in their hearts. Even so, what use is that? After exchanging 500 moves, he was beaten to the point of vomiting blood? As for us, we were completely unscathed. It's clear who is more distressed. The Moonlight Swordsman said, still unwilling to accept this. To lose to a second-level World King Jr. He would never do that. That's right, being distressed is losing face. Whitebird echoed. But just as they finished speaking, the old man in the sky lightly said, Is that so? Then, please look towards the platform. At this time, the dust on platform 7 had already dispersed. As everyone looked over, they were immediately shocked to the extreme. They saw that there was no longer a martial god giant on the platform, only a pile of scrap iron. Moreover, it was dazzling to the eye, and there were even clear fist marks on the copper and iron. Lin Ling, he had actually defeated the martial god giant. In that instant, everyone looked as if they had seen a ghost. This was simply unprecedented. This was because Lin Ling had actually defeated a true divinity realm martial god giant. This freak. It was as if a pebble had been thrown into a calm ancient lake. Endless ripples spread out. The Moonlight Swordsman's pupils widened. Before, Lin Ling had said that they weren't worthy, and now it seemed that they really weren't worthy. Impossible. You are only at the second level of the World King realm. After a moment of silence, Whitebird couldn't accept this reality. He glared at Lin Ling and said, Speak, how did you defeat the martial god giant? His attitude was aggressive, as if he wanted Lin Ling to speak. Hearing this, Lin Ling's eyebrows furrowed together. But soon he sneered. I punched him 500 times, that's all. I punched him 500 times, that's all. The entire square echoed with Lin Ling's heroic voice. That's all? That's all? As for the others, let alone 100 punches, they might not even be able to punch once. Moreover, even if they were lucky enough to punch out 100 times, could they be as crazy as Lin Ling and punch out 500 times in a row? Chapter 2394. Talent Assessment. In the beginning, many people disdained Lin Ling because they felt that Lin Ling was too ordinary. Since his strength was ordinary, he should keep a low profile. But now, they realized that this unknown youth was indeed extraordinary. Although this did not mean that Lin Ling was stronger than all the geniuses. At least he was not mediocre. This guy is actually a world spiritist. As for the mysterious old man in the sky, he said in astonishment. Only he saw how Lin Ling destroyed the martial god giant. Otherwise, how could he destroy the martial god giant? On the side, Ancestor Longpa smiled faintly. They could naturally see that Lin Ling could not destroy the martial god giant with his strength. However, Lin Ling was a world spiritist. His 500 punches seemed useless, but in reality, every single one of them had landed on some spirit formation. In the end, he had destroyed the spirit formation with brute force. That was how he had destroyed the martial god giant. It could be said that if Lin Ling was not a world spiritist, he would definitely not have been able to do that. From the looks of it, he is at least a green-robed world spiritist. The Resplendent Academy cannot miss such a genius. After that, the old man said excitedly, As for Yi Xiao Shou and Mai Zi, who were watching from afar, their expressions were somewhat gloomy. They had never imagined that Lin Ling would be able to blossom with such brilliance among tens of thousands of geniuses. Not only had Lin Ling passed the battle power assessment, he had even become number 1. This was disadvantageous to them, because if Lin Ling was too dazzling, he would be valued by the seniors of the academy. There is still one more assessment. If he fails, he will definitely be eliminated. Yi Xiaoshu said indifferently. I wonder what level his talent is. My Z's eyes were also cold. The plaza was still filled with discussions, and was extremely lively. The topic of discussion was undoubtedly about Lin Ling. No one had expected that Lin Ling would suppress all the geniuses in the manner of an overlord. This guy broke through the martial god realm with brute force. The blue enchantress looked at Lin Ling in horror. She thought that the lord above Tang Yue's head was only SOSO. But now she realized that she had once again underestimated Lin Ling. It was no wonder that the mischievous Tang Yue would submit to Lin Ling. Awesome, my lord. Watching your fist shatter the martial god giant made my blood boil. Falling flowers, flowing water, Sword said with incomparable admiration. That won't be easy. I just want to see what this martial god giant is made of. Lin Ling changed into a clean robe and shook his head with a smile. The main reason why Lin Ling had destroyed the martial god giant was because he wanted to see how strong the barrier of the martial god giant was. It would also be helpful to him. Pervert. Is that why you tore that thing apart? The chess boy and the others trembled and shook their heads helplessly. If Lin Ling was interested in the resplendent academy one day, wouldn't he tear down this ancient academy as well? Their lord was really a freak, with a unique way of doing things. While they were talking, on the other side, the moonlight swordsman and the others had gloomy expressions. They, the first row of geniuses, were now being trampled under Lin Ling's feet. However, there's still one more test. At this moment, they only had one last chance, because they didn't want to be trampled on by Lin Ling. In fact, they didn't know that with Lin Ling's current strength, he had no interest in bullying them because Lin Ling disdained it. Everything was caused by their self-righteousness. Disciples who have passed the previous test prepare for the final talent test. After resting for a moment, a dignified voice came from the sky. Moreover, a middle-aged man wearing a standard robe appeared out of thin air. He had 2 strands of beard on his face and looked wise and mighty. A pair of sword-like eyebrows were currently looking indifferently at the square. For the sake of fairness, the 2 tests were presided over by different people. Let me remind you, don't think that passing the combat strength test means that you've completely passed. Regardless of the result of the combat strength test, if you fail the talent test, you'll return to the round. Someone shouldn't get carried away. His voice was low, but he seemed to be talking about Lin Ling, because in the combat strength test, Lin Ling was the most dazzling. It's Senior Zhang. Yi Xiaoshu immediately started laughing from the distant spectator stands. Senior Zhang had a strange temper, and he was the hardest to please. Yi Xiaoshu had suffered quite a bit of trouble when he just entered the academy, but Senior Zhang didn't make things difficult for him anymore. After he gave Yi Xiaoshu a huge amount of divine crystals. Lin Ling had been so dazzling before. Based on Senior Zhang's eccentric personality, he would definitely make fun of Lin Ling unless Lin Ling gave away divine crystals to curry favor with him. In fact, many young geniuses had secretly given away divine crystals for this test. Of course, the young geniuses who gave away divine crystals were all local geniuses of the martial god realm. They had their own connections. If the geniuses of other realms wanted to give gifts, they wouldn't be able to find anyone. Moreover, if the gifts were too cheap, Senior Zhang wouldn't be interested in them. At this moment, Lin Ling's expression didn't change. He looked indifferently at the sky. He also knew that the middle-aged man seemed to be talking about him. When the middle-aged man saw that Lin Ling was neither arrogant nor humble, he frowned slightly and secretly cursed. What an untactful brat! Chapter 2395. Fight for first place. Embarrassing. He thought that Lin Ling was going to be eliminated, but he took the opportunity to break through to the next level. Lin Ling, on the other hand, was going to be eliminated. I think his talent is at most a 5th grade Xian body. A 5th grade Xian body can barely pass. However, if his state of mind isn't good, he might not be able to last 3 hours. Let's see how arrogant he can be in this round. White Bird and the others also let out a cold laugh, as if they were elated. Lin Ling didn't refute. After all, words were useless. Only strength could prove everything. As for talent, he had too many. His godly demon body was 5th grade. The space-time flame was 9th grade. And as for the 1,000-elephant demonic eyes, he was too embarrassed to use it because it would be too much of a blow to the geniuses around him. Since it's the final assessment, why don't we have a bet to see who will be first in the talent assessment? Then let's start a bet. At this moment, Yuanian suddenly smiled and looked at the middle-aged man in the sky. The middle-aged man nodded secretly. A bet would definitely bring in divine crystals. Naturally, he wouldn't stop it. Up to you. However, for the sake of fairness, I'll be the banker. The middle-aged man said faintly. After pondering for a while, he announced the bet. Moonlight Swordsman 1. 1 Whitebird 1. 1 Yulinglong 1. 1 Guru Qian 1. 2 Luo 1 Sierra Leonean Leone. 2 Blue Enchantress 1 2. Everyone could see that the geniuses in the first row were 1. 1 because they had the highest chance of winning and the lowest odds. Of course, there were risks. For example, Moonlight Swordsman, White Bird, Yulinglong, etc. Who would be first would depend on luck. As for the geniuses in the second row, their odds were higher. Next were the other geniuses who had passed. Among them, Lin Ling's odds were 130. It could be seen that Senior Zhang didn't think highly of him. Of course, under such circumstances, no one would bet that Lin Ling would be first. As for Senior Zhang, he would definitely win unless a dark horse appeared. Of course, such a thing was extremely unlikely. Therefore, he smiled with satisfaction. No expert would complain about having too many divine crystals. After all, it was related to one's strength, and even he was no exception. After that, the square became more and more lively. Regardless of whether they were going to be assessed or eliminated, they all placed their bets. To those young geniuses who'd been eliminated, even though they'd been eliminated, their trip wouldn't have been in vain if they'd won some divine crystals. Right at this moment, a tender voice suddenly resounded. I'll buy Lin Ling for 200,000 divine crystals. This voice was like a stone that stirred up 1,000 ripples, because there was actually someone betting on Lin Ling. Chapter 2398. The clash between two top-notch geniuses. In the previous combat strength assessment, she wasn't number 1 and lost to an unknown youth. Now she seemed to be suppressed in the talent assessment. Master said that talent is only one of the factors. Perseverance is also very important. I still have hope. Yulinglong clenched her teeth. Unfortunately, her perseverance was indeed good, but compared to Lin Ling, who started from scratch and had seen countless storms, her perseverance was like child's play. Therefore, she was defeated not long later. She spat out a mouthful of blood and helplessly left the 3-Dao lotus. One of the geniuses in the first row was eliminated. It seemed like White Bird was going to be number 1. White Bird, White Bird. Seeing this, voices of admiration immediately sounded out from the surroundings, especially from some young girls. Their eyes were filled with fervor as they stared at the White Bird. White Bird was too handsome. At this moment, the stage belonged to White Bird. This caused some geniuses to be ignored, and Lin Ling was one of them. Of course, at this moment, instead of looking at Lin Ling, why not look at the other genius in the first row? Because only he had the qualifications to compete with White Bird. That person was the Moonlight Swordsman. Seeing off the guests on the first night of the Xuanyang River, maple leaves and flowers rustle in autumn. Almost as soon as everyone's gaze is shifted, a desolate sound drifted out from the world around them. Maple leaves sprinkled down in the world around them, forming a desolate scene like the falling leaves signifying autumn. I walk the world alone like maple leaves. Maple leaves are the great Tao of the world. Thousands of maple leaves swirled and formed a dragon dance, causing the 3-Dao lotus in the distance to bloom with dazzling light. The Moonlight Swordsman's talent was the immortal maple depressing physique. It was an extremely ancient talent. It was said that this talent gathered all the depressing aura in the world. The stronger the depressing aura, the stronger the power. There was once a magnificent feat of destroying the world. When the depressing aura was depressing and depressing, one sword could break the world. Another 8th grade talent, Senior Zhang exclaimed. The Moonlight Swordsman's master was one of the top 10 sword immortals of Qingzhou. Indeed, like master like disciple. At this moment, everyone's attention was undoubtedly attracted by the 2 ancient lotuses. Both of them are the most dazzling geniuses of the younger generation. Who is number 1? Why is it that their age is similar to ours, but their talent and strength are so much stronger than ours? I think the Moonlight Swordsman is number 1. Intense voices and boiling blood flowed in each genius body, because they were the most dazzling geniuses in the world. Moonlight Swordsman. At the same time, White Bird looked at the Moonlight Swordsman calmly. His eyes were filled with battle intent. White Bird of the Heavenly Court, I have long heard of your great name. Among the younger generation in the 1,000 years of cultivation, you are one of the most important opponents for me. Come, let's fight. The Moonlight Swordsman raised his eyes and looked at White Bird. Their gazes were like intense sparks that clashed madly in the chaos of the universe. The clinching saw swordsmen essay matched. This was because this was their martial dais. In fact, at this moment, in the eyes of the Moonlight Swordsman, only each other was their opponent. They wanted to eliminate each other and walk into a wider world. 2. Both of them were persevering. They wanted to see who could last longer. The spiritual energy from the 3 Tao lotuses was even more majestic. It was hard for the 2 to hold on, but they weren't willing to be the first to give up. Not only were they resisting the spiritual energy from the 3 Tao lotuses, but they were also using their talent auras to clash. It formed a terrifying shockwave that shocked countless people. But at this moment, a soft voice sounded. Look, there's another figure in the 3 Tao lotuses. The moment this was said, the entire world went silent. Countless people's eyes trembled. On the ancient lotuses, other than the 2 most dazzling geniuses, there was another person sitting cross-legged. He was wearing a blue robe with his long hair tied behind his head. His handsome face was filled with determination. He was Lin Ling. He hasn't failed yet. Everyone's heart was like thunder. Lin Ling's talent wasn't as good as White Bird, and his background was unknown. However, he had persevered until now. This guy, even Ancestor Dragon Granny and the others in the distance had just noticed Lin Ling previously. Their gazes had been attracted by White Bird and the others. As for Blue Enchantress and the others, they were all shocked. How embarrassing. This is a talent assessment, not perseverance. Don't disturb their competition. Senior Zhang shouted angrily. He seemed to be upholding justice, but in fact, he was very unhappy with Lin Ling. If Lin Ling became first, he would lose big. Most importantly, White Bird was a member of the Heavenly Court and had a powerful background. The Moonlight Swordsman was the disciple of one of the top 10 sword immortals in the Qing province, and also had a noble status. But what was Lin Ling's background? He was only a member of the martial gods camp. From a certain perspective, he couldn't compare to White Bird and the others, because the martial gods camp was only a military camp of the Great Azure Divine Dynasty. If there was really a need for help, White Bird and the others would obviously be more helpful. Lin Ling was obviously unable to help. Even though he was a senior of the Resplendent Academy, he couldn't take out so many divine crystals at once. Even if he did, how could he bear to part with them? What did you do? Zhang Wen's eyes were cold as he suddenly shouted angrily. Now, even if he was beaten to death, he wouldn't admit Lin Ling. However, just as his voice fell, a voice that seemed to come from the distant starry sky arrived. He's number 1. The ancestral dragon granny spoke. Zhang Wen, this matter is obvious to all. Don't tell me you dare to violate the Academy's rules. The mysterious old man said coldly. Previously, Zhang Wen's words had affected Lin Ling, and they were already unhappy. Now Zhang Wen still dared to be arrogant? All of you. Zhang Wen stared at the distant sky. His face turned pale, and he became dispirited and angry. He never expected that because of an unknown young man, he would lose all face today. Moreover, he would probably have to spit out all the treasures he had stolen over the years. Lin Ling, #1 in the talent assessment. In the end, he gritted his teeth and spat out a sentence. He had no choice but to admit it. Hearing that sentence, Lin Ling finally smiled. And it was an extremely bright smile. In his previous life, he had swept through the clouds and defeated countless geniuses in the martial god realm. How could he fail miserably today? Lord Lin Ling, congratulations. Falling flowers, flowing water. And the others immediately said excitedly. As for the other geniuses, they looked at Lin Ling with only one sentence in their hearts. What a proud young man. Without a doubt, today's stage belonged to Lin Ling. Whoosh. At the same time, the entire universe disappeared like a receding tide. Everyone found that they were still in the square. This change made them feel like they were in a dream. However, the blue-robed young man in the square let them know that this was not a dream. Congratulations to everyone for becoming a disciple of the Resplendent Academy. Almost at the same time, the mysterious old man finally appeared. He was wearing a Taoist robe with 8 trigrams. He had a kind face, white hair, and a youthful complexion. He gave off a very good feeling. At least compared to the snobbish senior Zhang. He gave off a better impression. Lin Ling, congratulations on becoming the first in 2 tests. The mysterious old man looked at Lin Ling and smiled. Thank you, senior. The other party was very polite. So Lin Ling naturally did not dare to be negligent. He bowed slightly. Lin Ling was neither haughty nor humble, neither arrogant nor rash. Without a doubt, the mysterious elder nodded again. Others who had obtained first place in 2 major examinations would be incomparably arrogant. However, Lin Ling had quickly returned to his normal self and was not affected by external factors. His martial arts heart was very steady. Beside the mysterious old man, Zhang Wen's eyes were filled with resentment. Chapter 2403. The Hyperfocus Boundary Middle Second Grade Night King Spear Art. Alarmed. This was because this spear art was extremely famous throughout the myriad worlds. It was said that when cultivated to the peak, one could completely absorb the chaos of the universe. There was no need to doubt its might. Moreover, this was a middle second grade origin world martial art. This was not something that just anyone could successfully cultivate. Lin Ling is about to be defeated. Then, many people shook their heads. Lin Ling had erupted with his full strength from the start. He had used his profound body, because he wanted to end this battle as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, the effects of his strongest attack were very weak. And all of this was because of the disparity in boundary. However, Lin Ling's complexion didn't change. The spear struck out. His body twisted, dodging the spear. This was because the flames of time were burning space, allowing his body to leap through space. Currently, although his ultimate flame Dao had reached the hyperfocus boundary, he hadn't yet cultivated the accompanying fire tribute martial arts. Thus, he could only use the flames of time and space as a movement martial art. Moreover, he had only wanted to familiarize himself with the might of the flames of time. Thus, he had only used the world spirit of his second Dantian. That Dantian was only at the second stage of the World King realm. But Yi Xiaoshou didn't know any of this. He thought that Lin Ling was only at this level. Dodge. You came to our 5-year agreement. Could it be that you only know how to dodge? Roar. Yi Xiaoshou's spear struck out. He roared, as if all the pent-up pressure he had endured for the past 5 years had been released. He was slowly washing away his shame. Whoosh. Whoosh. Lin Ling constantly retreated, as if he were avoiding a storm. Weren't you very arrogant before? But now, you can't even withstand a single strike. Have you wasted 5 years of your cultivation on a dog? You dare to fight me? You simply don't know how to write the word death. Roar. Come Lin Ling. Let's have a life or death battle. You think that with your formidable talent you can crush me? Let me tell you, you are far too inexperienced. Roar. The entire void battlefield was swept up by the spear, stirring up a storm. Ha! Roar! Seeing this scene, many people shook their heads. Lin Ling was still too arrogant, daring to challenge the last generation disciple. That was simply an impossible thing. They could already foresee that Lin Ling was dead for sure. Moreover, Lin Ling should be regretting it now. We're not worthy. Is he worthy? White Bird and the Moonlight Swordsman looked at each other and shook their heads mockingly. As for Xian Yuan Go-er and the others, they were extremely worried because the void battleground was becoming more and more chaotic. Facing a martial art that contained the power of primal chaos, what else could Lin Ling do? He could only blame himself for being too arrogant. If he didn't challenge Yi Xiao Shouxiao with his talent, it wouldn't take long for him to surpass Yi Xiao Shouxiao. You're admitting defeat just like that? Trash. Yi Xiao Shouxiao's lips curled into an excited smile. 5 years. It had been a full 5 years. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Now was the time for him to wash away the shame of his life. Not only was he excited, but he also felt that his martial arts comprehension had increased. After all, the knot in his heart was about to be untied. However, was that really the case? Lin Ling stood still, waiting for the night sky to arrive. His right hand finally reached for the ancient sword behind him. In fact, he had several ways to defeat Yi Xiao Shouxiao. Dodging domain. He could easily dodge the sky full of black spears. Space-time divine steel. He could easily smash Yi Xiao Shouxiao to death. However, Lin Ling didn't use any of these because he wanted to use his sword. In truth, his talent in the path of the sword was inferior to that of the space-time flame. But in terms of control, he was more familiar with the profound sword record. After all, he had only just comprehended the ultimate flame Tao of the space-time flame. Lin Ling, is he drawing his sword? What's the use? This is nothing more than a deathbed struggle. Many people saw Lin Ling's actions and couldn't help but admire Lin Ling's fearless state of mind. But that was it. At this time, Yi Xiao Shouxiao was still brandishing his spear, attacking Lin Ling. But soon, a horrifying killing intent locked onto his body. This killing intent came without warning, but it caused his heart to palpitate. A very intense aura. This was a sword. Who is it? Suddenly he looked towards Lin Ling. It was only then that he discovered that Lin Ling had already drawn his sword. Moreover, the sword's aura climbed higher and higher. Yi Xiao Shouxiao suspected that Lin Ling had already reached the 5th level of the World King realm. But, wasn't Lin Ling at the 3rd level of the World King realm? In that moment, Yi Xiao Shouxiao's heart trembled. In particular, as he saw Lin Ling's calm eyes, he began to panic. At the same time, the sword became increasingly bright, as if it came from the world of swords. The first stroke of the profound character appeared. Soon after, a second stroke appeared. Of course, compared to the raging night sky, these 2 strokes seemed ordinary. But Yi Xiao Shouxiao could sense that this was the ultimate sword Tao. At this moment he had a sneer on his face. Obviously, he was also one of the people who were making things difficult for Lin Ling. He had even come to avenge his younger brother. Demon Guardian Master. Blue Enchantress also recognized this person, and her pretty face became even more dignified. This was because this was also a 3rd-generation disciple. Most importantly, he was a member of the Flying Dragon Organization. The Flying Dragon Organization was an assassin alliance that spread throughout the 9 prefectures. Just the name alone was enough to make people tremble in fear. Tang Yue, Falling Flower Flowing Water Sword, Dbimo Chess Boy, this has nothing to do with you. Mai Zi shouted angrily. These people's backgrounds weren't weak, and he didn't want to provoke them. It seems that they're here for revenge. Of course, it could also be a competition for the market. After all, only my commandery and Grand Court commandery both had markets here. But it was undeniable that the blue-robed youth seemed to be in trouble. Do you want to do it or should I? The entire street was silent. Only the Demon Guardian Master spoke. He spoke to the 36 Realm Kings. He killed my people. Let me do it. The 36 Realm Kings nodded. They drank their wine and walked out indifferently. Okay, the head is mine. I want to report back. The Demon Guardian Master stopped and closed his eyes. It seemed that he didn't care about what was going to happen next. And he obviously came for Lin Ling's head, because the Flying Dragon Organization had issued a kill order for Lin Ling. The 36 realm kings didn't say much. They smiled faintly and said, "You shouldn't have killed him. If you kill him, you'll die." There were rules around the Resplendent Academy. Martial artists couldn't kill. However, there were many martial artists here. And there were even rogue cultivators. Therefore, the Academy couldn't do anything about it. They could only helplessly accept the cruel reality. Only in the market would the Academy come out to punish them. Since Lin Ling had killed the black-robed youth, others wouldn't have to worry about killing him unless Lin Ling hid in the market. "How dare you?" Sensing the killing intent of the other party, Tang Yue and the others shouted angrily. "Why wouldn't I dare to kill my people? Moreover, he doesn't deserve to make me afraid." The 36 realm kings continued to walk forward.